Ask for a roll call vote for those present.
Kevin McCarthy, that's present.
Diane Kennedy here.
Paul Schubert here.
Jack Knightley here. Steve Gomer there.
If you wish to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please do so. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. As a music major, you need
I don't know.
You gotta go. Get a little tweet
To a different job. Next up, public comment. Are there any items not on the agenda that the public wishes to comment on? None seen? Okay. Next up is licenses, permits, and events. And I believe there is the public hearing notice. Board of Selectmen acting as a liquor license authority will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, June 13th, 2017 at 7 p.m. at the Selectmen's Office, Town Hall, to consider the application of Cohasset Pub Corporation doing business as Mr. Dooley's Old Village Pub located 9 Depot Court, Cohasset, Mass. 02025. The application for a change in beneficial interest, new officer, directors, and a transfer of stock. The public is invited to offer public input on the proposed in writing in advance of the public hearing or in person at the hearing. So I'll turn it over to Chris.
I think a comparatively routine, which I expect our
So
guests
just
will
introduce
respond.
yourself.
I'm Noelle Summers. I'm Rashi Manglik. I'm from McDermott Quilty Miller.
And this is required by the ABC for, I think there's a change of,
Beneficial interest,
Okay.
right. So, as you know, Summers, the Cohasset Pub Corporation is a long-standing family-run operation. Unfortunately, due to the death of John Summers, there has to be a change in the officers and directors. The day-to-day operation won't change at all. It's just a shifting of the different directors and leadership.
So it's a sale of majority interest or not?
There's no sale. It's just a
transfer?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
It's staying within
The family?
our family. Exactly.
and it's required by the ABCC requirements.
Yeah.
in the state.
Who's the transfer? By transfer, you mean what now?
Provide you,
Is it transfer of the stock that was owned by Mr.?
so it's transferring from, previously it was between John Summers and Ann Summers, and now they're going to be, the two direct beneficial interest holders will be in the name of two trusts. And then there's some specific trust holders, I can,
And the trust holders currently hold an interest in the business?
yes.
It's my mother is the beneficiary, and then when she passes, it goes to the kids, and then we're down as directors.
So, okay, so you're taking the ownership and putting it into it. Is the whole business gonna be in a trust then?
In two different trusts, yes. I
Yeah.
have actually a breakdown, the one circled on the bottom left.
So I think one is the John J. Summers Trust, and the other is the Ann R. Summers Family Trust,
Yeah.
which would be the entire
Children,
shareholder.
children of the trustees, are the children all active in the business, or are they simply acting as trustees in this case?
They're directors.
No, I understand that, but they're active, are they active in the day-to-day business?
Two of us are.
Okay.
The manager of record is still Michael Carlisle, though that's not gonna change.
It's the same Dooleys that's owned the other Dooleys and.
Yes.
And is the same transfer occurring there and
Yes.
Yes.
the other communities
Right.
are going to do with the same thing?
Any questions?
None for me.
So I guess we need a motion to transfer the license to the trust. Okay.
Are you actually transferring the license to the trust?
No, you're approving a set of new board, you're approving a new board of directors, new officers and directors of the corporation.
Right.
So I'd ask for a motion to approve the proposed ownership of the two trusts so stated, page 2 of our packet.
So made.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, good luck.
Thank
Good luck.
you.
The left-hand side.
Let the business do well and all our businesses do well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Next up is the update on the Cohasset solar lease.
Can I ask, Mr. Chairman, how kind you would join us at the front?
Oh, sure.
Take one of those.
Hold on.
We got two things.
They're two separate.
So, let me give you just a quick update as we enter. So, because I think we all, I think as everyone is, maybe as everyone's aware.
Second scene.
The town some years ago approved a solar facility on the town landfill, and after a little adventure, which included the original winner of the bid bankrupt, and then the change in the regs, we were able to bring back one of the original bidders, who happens to live in town, one of the principals, go forward. Town meeting reapproved the proposal. It's been vetted through alternative energy. It's actually built, which is very exciting, and now we're at the point of the connections. At the last meeting, the board approved a license, which by the way, I have a copy of. You need to sign that license agreement for the interconnection poles. And now we have two, the original lease and purchase power agreement goes back 4 or 5 years, I guess, something like that. We need to make some tweaks to it, so that we went back and forth in a series of conversations. We've talked to council. Tanya and I finished some of those conversations just this afternoon, and I thank her tremendously for the time she's given to this. She knows more, she's forgotten more about this stuff in the last 15 minutes than I'll probably ever know in my life. So here we are with some, and this is, rather than rewrite the whole agreement, there's just a couple of amendments, and I'll turn to Tanya to explain briefly.
Sure. So for the most part, the amendments are cleaning up some things. There's a couple more whereas to explain what's happened since we first started down this process. I think it was 2015, subject to check with 14,
Okay, yeah.
when we signed. And if you recall, the original RFP process was before, I think, in 2013. So it has been a long process. I will say that without the support of Palmer Capital, this would not have been done. To build on a small landfill as ours, which is 0.5 megawatt, it's very difficult to do, very difficult to make the economics work, and especially given all of the uncertainty that was happening at the time. If it wasn't for the will of one of our Cohasset residents, Gordon Dean, to move forward, it would not have gone forward. So we are now at a point where there are some proposed amendments. We have gone back and forth. We've done some due diligence on some of the requests, and for the most part, everything's pretty minor. There's one piece that we want to raise, but we raise it to give you comfort and to explain to you what we've done to get comfort ourselves. Do you want me to talk about that? So it's very common for these types of projects to go through a couple of rounds of financing. The original development might be done by private equity. When it comes time for construction, there might be construction financing, and when that's done, there's permanent financing that comes in. For most projects, at each step of the way, everybody who's coming in the new money, they require a waiver of default provisions up to that point. And it's just a way to make it a clean slate and move forward. In this case, Palmer Capital funded with private equity all the way through construction, and that was important for us to get it done. But we're now at the point where they can obtain certain financing goodies, if you would, such as tax equity financing, which helps to make the project work. I don't know if they're doing permanent financing, but regardless, there is a financing component that requires those waivers of the default provisions up to that point. It does not require us to waive any future default provisions, and most importantly, it does not require us to waive any remedies or recourse we might have for something that might have happened. And as an example, if during construction something punctured the membrane on the landfill, there would still be remedies and recourse that we could pursue. That is not waived as part of this waiver. This is simply saying we're not sitting on something known or unknown that we're going to spring on the new lenders as soon as the lending goes through. And so someone comments often called a release. It might be called an estoppel. So the request is in here for this amendment to do the same. We had concerns because it asked us to waive known or unknown defaults. And obviously it's hard to know what the unknown is. So we've done some due diligence to try to understand to the best of our ability whether or not there might be some unknown that would give us pause. And we do know that there were some defaults on timing, but we don't care, and we're happy that we continue to be able to move forward, because the timing, in most cases, the developer would have walked away, because of uncertainty that was going on at the state on the regulations. So, we have gone through the amendments, we've gone through negotiations. What you see before you is the final set of proposed amendments, and I think we're here asking for approval. And once these amendments are approved, in combination with the license for the utility easement, we will be able to connect the currently constructed site and start saving between $20,000 to $40,000 a year.
And the easements, when are they finalized? Is that gonna be a town meeting, or have the easements been, do
So-
we do anything further on those?
No, so you approved the license.
Right.
Only town meeting can grant an easement, so between now and then, we'll have that language. The board did approve in advance, putting something on for town meeting consideration. Between now and then, we'll hammer out the language and then.
So, yeah, so the final easements will be approved at town meeting, and then
Correct.
we're really done, right? Or
Yeah,
they're really-
but the hookup will happen, but we're not gonna wait. I don't believe the National Grid, the principals back in, they're prepared to connect once we have the license in place. Understanding that town meeting is still some months away, and you've already authorized putting that on.
Sounds good.
And we have a very important deadline. It's not just about the economics of every day we wait is a day we're not saving money. October 24th, 2017 is when we may have an expiration on our ability to obtain the net metering credits. We currently, I call them to confirm, we do have the equivalent of close to 515 megawatts reserved for our landfill. But if we don't get the approval and the connection from the utility, who has to give the word to the state, those net metering credits won't start flowing to us, in which case, for our purposes, it's not helpful.
Is that a finite number of credits, or is those credits going forward for some time?
So the equivalent of the 515 megawatts for the duration, well, subject to whatever the regulations are, it would be for as long as the state's granting those net metering credits. Presumably, any change to the regulations going forward would grandfather in the existing.
So the 515 is each year then, or forever?
So the 515 megawatts is the general size of the facility. The megawatt hours is what's actually produced, and we'll be obtaining credits for the megawatt hours, which will be a
Duration.
portion of, depending on
So
how
as long
much
as,
sun
as long as we
is.
get into this October 17th deadline, we're good on this first.
We're good, and the credit, just to tell you how important this is, if we're currently paying 16 to 20 cents, that's much higher than the price that's in the contract, which I'm not going to specify in an open meeting. But as a result, we pay to Palmer Capital that lower price, and then we get a credit on our bill for that 16 to 20 cents, or whatever our G1 rate is. And for the town, it's very lucrative. It's not just the supply piece, it's also the transmission and the distribution get offset.
Yeah, the delivery costs are pretty high.
And that's where we start to get these estimated savings. It depends on what the G1 rate is, of course, and there's a rate case currently going on before the state, PUC, but that's where the estimates of 20 to 40,000 a year come from, is that difference between what we'd be paying at the lower rate versus the credit we'd be getting.
And the trigger point for getting that, again, is when they plug in. So that's what I
We
want.
have to be
And that we can
interconnected.
do in the next week or two if we sign this soon.
It's whenever National Grid gets out to the site.
Yeah, okay.
We just actually put in our polls today, and we're
2018,
wiring.
2019.
So you're
And
close.
once we get the license agreement signed off with everybody's signature, we're gonna give that to N-Grid, and I've spoken with their interconnection group, and at least the technical people are ready to go, but we gotta give it to their real estate people to get them in motion, so.
Right.
The waiver in this case would cover defects in workmanship materials preceding this point. Could you point out that there's remedy that may still exist if in fact we were to find some? How would that occur?
Well, subject to clarification, and maybe this is a point where
Yeah, this is a waiver of triggers for default, and those are mostly deadlines and approvals. If there's something wrong with the site, they don't meet their requirements for generating energy, that's a whole different thing. We're not, that's a future forward thing. So
Okay.
we've agreed to a fully functional solar landfill, that's what has to work, solar array. This, and again, as Tanya pointed out, if there was something else physical. That's what the default really triggered on getting financing, getting it built,
Right.
getting approvals. Those things have happened. Again, I don't think we're grateful they have happened. There were some bumps and twists along the way because there are, but we're here. It's built, and I think the only thing that's ready to go now is just like not literally flicking a switch. But
And the contract has a minimum output guarantee. And if there's a shortfall against that amount, we're paid the difference between that G1 rate and, which is what presumably we'd be paying for the equivalent of that energy that's not produced. So we
Okay.
have protections in there on what poor workmanship would entail or result in. So it is important to understand it's a waiver on events of default, as that is defined in the contract, which are very specific. And secondly, it does not preclude future events of default or any remedies for recourse going forward.
Okay.
And this is fine with council.
yeah, we actually spoke with council earlier.
So you probably need approval of each of these then?
Yeah, I to make it clean, yes, because the board's already approved the original. These are just the amendments to them. So if you can ratify them, Tracy will keep up with them, has the master. On them. Whether you sign them now or later in the meeting, after you approve, that's fine. And you have to just sign up on the license. So we have that.
I ask for a motion to approve the amendment from site lease agreement as written.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed by no. And I'd also ask for a motion to approve the amendment to net metering power purchase agreement.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed by no. Thank you. No, that's a lot of work, and it looks absolutely fantastic up there.
A lot of work, a lot of time, I know.
It really looks nice. It
Great.
has a nice clean look to it.
When we're ready to go, and I don't know when that's going to be, we'll obviously do something more celebratory and public. So.
Ribbon cutting or?
Yeah.
You need
And
tours?
the contract
You need tours?
requires,
Can you?
I don't.
You should.
Well, I guess if the opening some kind of tour, maybe guided tour of some kind.
Yeah, we could, well, gravel roads.
Just out of curiosity, can people walk like between them? You can't go anywhere near them?
No. It's a restricted site. You have no.
I have no idea.
So
No,
on a-
you
on a
can't go to the boutique
It's not,
and then take a little walk.
it's not like a
through
Halloween
the,
maze, right? Okay.
no.
solar
So,
panels.
so on a good day, sunny, how much power would that generate, let's say for average house?
Not enough for you to charge the car.
Just wonder what, it's half a, you said half a?
It's half a megawatt, so 515 kilowatts.
So
If
that's
we
probably
calculate it, it's
two
about
houses,
15%, 7 to 15% of the town's total usage, including the schools,
For a year.
Wow.
per year. So, there's a lot more opportunity that we've been looking at to try to get more savings through this. Again, the town, municipalities are in a favored, municipalities that don't have their own electric light and power companies have very favorable terms. We're just limited on potential locations where we can make this happen, as you know. The other thing I would like to make note of, which is very exciting, is in the contract, there's a requirement for education. And so a screen or display live indicating how much is being produced and what the potential equivalent savings are, needs to be placed in a public location to be determined by the town. And so it could be in the schools entering in, it could be at the new town hall, it could be someplace where there's a lot of traffic to really show what's happening and create some excitement and knowledge around our little landfill solar array.
That's terrific.
Good.
Excellent.
Great work.
Great.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
And next up is the South Shore Recycling Cooperative Program.
First is the.
Oh, no, sorry, RTF regulation amendment, sorry. So these are new or adjusted?
Just
regulations?
revised, so last time these were drafted was in December 8th, 1997. So just, we're kind of revising it just based on, evolution and market trends in recycling. And we anticipate doing more revisions as, more frequent than, whatever that term is, 20 years. Yeah, just to highlight some of the some of the changes that we made, bulky plastics are not recycled, they're going into C&D. Facility stickers are no longer sold at DPW or the RTF, they're at the town clerk. We're taking logs up to 12 inches because the chipper doesn't, we're just taking brush. Solicitation permits, it addresses that. And one other thing that wasn't in the 1997 rules is enforcement and penalties for people who don't follow the rules with, pay-as-you-throw bags. In July 10th, 2010, the Board of Selectmen voted on penalties, but it was never codified until these regs hadn't been updated. So those penalties are now in the regs, where your first offense will be a written warning, second offense is a $50 fine, third and fourth offense are $100 fines, and then subsequent offenses, there's a suspension of your RTF permit for 6 months, and then periods of 12 months thereafter. So the process that we're going through right now is, many people know, the RTF needs kind of a facelift and kind of a rejuvenation. We have the SSRC. Fortunately, we partnered with them, and you'll meet Julie Sullivan in a minute, who's going to be our RICO. It's not a Sopranos term, but it's recycling education and compliance officer. So she's going to educate folks with literature at the RTF as they go through, and kind of re-educate the public on what they're supposed to be recycling, where it's supposed to go, and we're going to do improved signage. And following the education, we're going to step up our enforcement with, the policies that are in place. That it really hasn't been really followed too much in recent years.
Who's gonna be the enforcement person? People?
Work on that.
Yeah, so we have, we're looking to get more staff up there, and we are putting in surveillance cameras, new signage. We'll hopefully re-educate the public. Signs that have been there for 20 years just become backdrop, and you don't even really read them. So signage, education through SSRC and Julie and Claire here. Then it's going to be, enforcement's going to be through letters from DPW. It won't be, you're not getting tickets on site. It'll be basically license plate, you get a letter in the mail, first offense, and then subsequent.
So you'll be pulling the information off the cameras?
Off the cameras and staff on site who will
So the
be-
staff will just write it up and...
Well, staff they're gonna notify, what the rules are. You're not supposed to be throwing that bag in there, and if the rules aren't followed, they're gonna be taking license plates, and then the cameras will also back that up.
So the recycling education will include the blue bag education?
Yes.
Because honest to God, I get calls about that like every weekend. So, that's part of it, not just paper goes here and cardboard boxes go there.
It needs to be in a bag.
And that's a good point, because Claire and I were just talking, probably the next updates on these regulations, it'll be more frequent. We'll probably put in some more pay-as-you-throw program details in here.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So I think every 20 years an update is pretty good.
Yeah. A little more frequent.
I'd ask for, this is the final draft, so I'd ask for an approval of the regulations for operation of the Cohasset Recycling. Sorry.
Before you move ahead, can I simply ask that we review the efficacy, especially the enforcement procedures, at some point, possibly 6 months from now? I'm relatively concerned that without someone on site charged with enforcement, and I'm not talking in this case about an RTF staff employee, that this is all nice words, right? All things considered, I've been tagged for not paying my toll, and yet have had to indicate that at the time they're willing to give me a ticket, they've already charged my fast pass. So the idea of benign enforcement by way of a camera is, to me, I think we're kidding ourselves. And separately, the concept that for all the work that the staff has to do currently there, that they'll take time out, copy down a license plate in order to send a letter, and then it becomes either capture the camera or he said, she said, is going to lead nowhere good. I mean, with all due respect, I think this is exactly the type of job for a special officer patrolling on a random basis 2 days out of every 4 that it's open. That's my opinion. So let's see how this works. And I think the best way to do that is allow it to go into effect and determine whether or not it has been meeting its objectives with respect to enforcement.
I appreciate the thoughts, Steve. We've been talking about this for a while, and we're actually in the process of putting a new person, hiring someone new to oversee the RTF on a regular basis. And at the same time, we were fortunate to be able to partner, you'll hear about this in just a second, with our recycling consortium to do an education program, because I think we want to take the time to re-educate everybody with just what this is all about. There's a fair number of people who are fairly new to town and may not know all the rules. And then we say, look, okay, we've educated you, we've done this, we're gonna, we'll fill up Mary's pages with plenty of things in the Mariner, we'll put on the Facebook, we'll do videos, whatever's gonna work, and we've already tried it, and we'll talk more about this when they come up. And then we need to be much stricter, because this isn't an optional thing, this is not a fun thing, this is how we pay for solid waste. It's not on the tax bill, it's paid through pay-as-you-throw. So you're literally just making someone else pay your bill if you don't use the bags, and that's not okay to do that. So I think we need to remind people, and then we need to start enforcing it seriously after we've given people an adequate amount of time to relearn this. And I agree, we have to look at alternatives to how to do that, and it's something we'll be talking about over the summer.
Yeah, I need to be very clear that my comments are not directed in any way at the staff at the RTF.
No. Right.
I frankly, from my perspective, that's not, enforcement is not their role. They got enough going on otherwise. I remember, frankly, when I moved into town 25 years ago, I thought it was the most barbaric thing I'd ever heard. Actually, I take it back, because pay-as-you-throw didn't exist 25 years ago. It came in, I think, some 22 or something. It was a short time after we moved here. However, sorting your trash was a big deal. And, over the last 10 or 15 years, it's become almost a game. How long can you go before you actually have a full bag because you've separated everything out that's possibly recyclable? I'd be interested to know in a 6-month checkup too, how how effective we've been over the years at recycling. There was a point where I think we were recognized as a community for being particularly effective that way. Are we still in that realm? So it'd be worth hearing that in a checkup.
We did have a recycling committee too, so once we hear from our guests and see this forward, that might be something.
I have some real concerns for the safety of the staff up there. There's some folks that don't take to being told what to do very well, and I've seen altercations. You're really not training the staff to deal with the public in an enforcement role, and I'd be worried about the staff.
We've instructed the staff, so they do, it is part of their, enforcement is part of their job, but they are just told to verbally tell them what the rules are, and then not to engage in any conflict, just write down the license plate, and then we'll handle the enforcement from the office through mailings. It's not really a face-to-face, giving you a ticket.
It's definitely time for a refresh, and again, just a re-education, and then again, I think all the input and anything that will get the word out better, and there's a degree of peer pressure I would hope too, to some extent, right? We would rather not have to have someone standing at the bin every day all the time watching. It's just not, if we have to, we will. But I think we have a great opportunity now to do some re-education and to really reach folks more and remind people why it is. There's a logic to this. This was the way the town chose to go to fund the whole solid waste operation. If it doesn't work, we're gonna have to find another way to fund it. it does cost to dispose of solid waste. So, but I also think to the points that are raised about the town's recycling history, I do think we need to get better at that again too. And there's a lot of people who don't, when they come into town, they're not coming from a sort your own recycle. If you come from a single stream recycling town, you just dump everything in a bin. It's a radical step, as you point out, Steve. Just start sorting your brown glass and your white glass, much less than everything else.
You know, one thing, and again, we can talk about it in the education piece, but, you know, it might be worth coming up with a brochure and just handing it out to people, even though I hate to hand paper out to people, because
Timing is perfect.
I have to tell you, it's not the people that are new to town, it's the old dogs. And,
I'm being generous.
I know, but I'm not. And it's very frustrating when you go up there and I'm like, you know, my bag weighs more than me. And, you know, I see people that are like, whoa, I can't believe you have to pay for a blue bag. So I think it's probably something worth mentioning to everybody. Listen, this is why we do it, and everybody needs to do it.
How much do we expect our,
I'm all set.
how much do we expect our yield to increase by enforcement?
Well, let's have I think Claire and Julie come up. If I could ask you to get these, approve these.
And what is our compliance? What's our compliance?
I think that these are all good questions that I think we'll continue the conversation.
And just a matter of note, yeah, so we need to vote on this in order to receive the grant and the, SSRC enforcement.
And they do their
Yeah,
part.
them to do their part.
So, all set with comment?
Yeah, do you want a motion?
Yes, please.
So I move that we approve the amended June 1st, 2017 regulations for operation of the Cohasset Recycling Transfer Facility.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, 5-0, it passes.
Aye.
Well, just
Thanks.
you want to stay and
there's two chairs there, Julie and Claire.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
So we have two special guests, Mr. Chairman and the board.
Welcome.
Oh, it is so refreshing to hear these wonderful remarks about your concerns about solid waste and recycling. It's really music to my
You had
ears.
to just identify yourself.
I'm
from
Claire
the-
Galkowski. I'm the executive director of the South Shore Recycling Cooperative, of which Cohasset was a founding member back in 1998. I've been there since the inception of our organization. And so we've been working with Cohasset. We do the hazardous waste collections. In fact, I'll put in a plug next Saturday. Your collection is going to be in Situate. Don't come too early. It's going to be busy. But we've been working, we've had Cohasset work with Situate, which saves a lot of money for the hazardous waste collections because you don't have a huge town. And that'll be the last collection of the spring. There will be 6 more in the fall, and to which your residents will have access with permission from the DPW. So that's that whole thing. And yesterday I was up at your DPW, and you should be in line to get about $10,000 or $11,000 in grants for Mass DEP. I submitted the application with Mary yesterday, and Cohasset does have a very good program. We're down there in March though with Chris and Brian and some of the other staff from the DPW, and we did notice that there was quite a bit of non-compliance, especially with the blue bags. So Julie, we have a grant from Mass DEP ourselves, so the South Shore Recycling Cooperative was able to hire Julie Sullivan.
That is me. So Brian already gave me a little bit of an introduction as well, but basically I am the Recycling Education and Compliance Officer for South Shore Recycling Co-op. So I've already done this in Hingham, and I believe that it went very well. So since kind of your discussion was a perfect segue into kind of what I wanted to talk about, I'll just kind of walk you through my process in terms of like speaking with residents and enforcement. And so basically what we do is we get these, they're part of this thing called the Recycling IQ Kit, and DEP received them. They're on an open source website, and they're just kind of these informational handouts, much like the ones that you have, and we customize them to the needs of every town. And
This is a generic one that I just have printed up for all of our drop-off towns.
And so we've gone through a few rounds of revision on those already, and we're like 95% of the way to getting them done and printed. And there's a whole outreach process that kind of goes along with the design of these pamphlets, where I kind of try to get in touch with the town staff, have website postings, Facebook postings, email blasts if possible. I got in touch with Mary with an article about multi-stream recycling and the economic and environmental benefits of that kind of stuff. So I really try to do like a huge outreach blast before I even get out there, so residents will know that I'm present and won't get angry when they see me bothering them, so to speak. But I try not to bother them.
You don't bother
Yeah.
anybody.
So this is how I try not to bother them. So I have these pamphlets, and I will kind of, it sounds like the blue bags are a really big issue, and tomorrow I'm actually going down there just to kind of hang out and see how people use the transfer station and take notes and kind of base my approach off of that. And what I'll do in that situation is probably, if the blue bags are like your major issue, I would probably stand in that area and just kind of try to engage with every person that walks up and be like, hey, like, I have this recycling pamphlet, like, do you have any questions? Just kind of start a discussion with everyone who comes by, and then if I see an incident of non-compliance, I'll be like, hey, I'll trade you this pamphlet for, like, insert proper behavior here, and, like, try to seize whatever recyclables I see, and then just kind of inform them of the mandatory recycling clause and let them know, like, next time, like, this will be an issue. So that's sort of what I do in a nutshell, and so I'll be hopefully starting that process in Cohasset in maybe like a week, I'd say.
Probably within a week, yep.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of confusion too. I mean, there are certainly residents who will try to game the system, but there's some genuine confusion too, because over the past 20 years, the material mix has changed drastically. There's a lot less paper, there's more soft plastics, none of which can be recycled at this point. But we're seeing a lot of soft plastics getting mixed in with the containers, which devalues the recycling stream. I don't know that that's the case in Cohasset specifically, but
What is a soft plastic?
like plastic bags, anything that's crinkly, like the
Not-
tuna fish pouches.
Right, not formed. Got it.
Things like that. They're not rigid
Shrink wrap.
containers. Even styrofoam can't go in with the plastics either. And people are rightfully confused about a lot of materials. There's mixed materials that are fused together, and you got to understand how it works. They have to have pure materials to be able to make a feedstock for new products. But there's a lot of what's called wishful recycling out there that may or may not be happening in Cohasset. So Julie's going to be trying to explain, what is trash, what is recycling. We don't want recycling in the trash. We don't want trash in the recycling. And what is trash, what is recycling.
And I find that my role sort of is a great opportunity for a lot of people to ask questions. I was actually overwhelmingly surprised by the amount of thoughtful questions that I've received from residents just by doing this. So there are a lot of questions out there. I just think, and I have questions all the time, even though I'm technically the expert on this, but I think it's something that's always useful to keep a running dialogue about, and that's kind of what I've been able to help with as well.
Do you know, is there recycling or reuse for packaging materials? Bubble wrap, air packs, things like that?
Yes, bubble wrap, you can either take it to the UPS or, the other packaging stores. They're happy to get packing materials. And if it's the plastic, the soft plastic, if you
Yeah, no, I realize you can pop it.
pop it, you can
and
take it
throw
to the
out.
supermarket.
Oh, okay.
And put it in with the plastic bags. So.
Those
they're-
Amazon pouches kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, and we have a great
Amazon's
webpage.
incredible.
The South Shore Recycling Cooperative has a very active website. I can't believe how many hits we've been getting, hundreds a day. It's amazing. And we have a page called Recycling A to Z that answers questions like that, what do you do with plastic bags or packing peanuts or things like that. How do you define textiles? It can have holes in it, you can put crappy stuff in the textile bin and they'll shred it and make insulation out of it. You don't have to put that in the trash. These are things that most people don't know, and I'm still I've been doing this for 25 years, and I'm still I still get stumped sometimes, so.
What about communication pieces that you have right in the facility itself? So that, you know, people, a lot of people may be going there, they may have something and they sort of don't know where to go with it. So do you have anything, I mean,
We
I'm
have
thinking maybe at the
signs.
bin with this plastic, if there's a clear designation, this is plastic or whatever. I doubt if we can afford it, but I mean, if you could have even something, ideally, if you had something like an information booth where people could, on site while they're there, talk to somebody, well, what do I do with my plastic next time or whatever, but I don't know if we can afford to have that, but do you do anything like that kind of stuff?
We have a couple of signs, we have a, you know, no bag recyclables sign and a no recyclables in the trash sign.
We try to keep the signage pretty basic, cause we find that like if people are overwhelmed with signage, it kind of creates this like sign blindness that,
Yeah, which I think so one of you has alluded to.
right.
They do need to be refreshed and very graphic rather than too wordy.
Right.
People
I was thinking since their website is so successful, this might mean we could put this on our website.
Oh, exactly.
Because,
I believe
you know, if
you
you're
already
getting so
have
many,
some links.
not only yours, but yeah, whatever, we would, because we would probably get a lot of hits too then on.
Mhm.
We'd love to do, I mean, we talked when Julie came in and Claire came in March, I'd love to do some videos. I mean, I'd love to
Yeah.
do, we could put on Facebook, we could put on the website. It could be, you know, regular citizens who are here, this is what.
Fuzz out the face of the
Well,
guy not using a blue
right.
bag.
That's a fun idea too, I hope we actually do that, cause I
Yeah, I'd love to,
do
we have a
that.
TV crew, I mean, and I've talked to our TV.
Here's a selectman, you're not using a blue bag.
You could do it, you could act out a skit, you know?
That's true. Oh, that's.
So,
That would be fun.
so we'd love to do that, so,
Yeah, that'd
with
be
your,
awesome.
with your, you know, participation, it'd be great. So
for sure.
be in a skit, you could.
Yeah, right.
I love doing stuff like that. I mean, the more fun you can have with it, the better too, because the less likely you are to actually like get people irate at you.
Exactly, make them laugh a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, especially if you get volunteers to do it, that people would recognize, it probably kind of, would be highly communicated and a little bit of fun for the community.
And we love to, we have a TV studio, we have a production crew, and this, I know that Don has less kids in the summer, but I know there are still some sitting here with them, so it'd be great. So just
Well,
touch
try
base.
to, try to spread you as thin as we can.
Exactly.
We have Julie, the grant goes through the end of next year, so she's basically with us for a little over a year and a half. Hopefully we'll be able to keep her on, outside of a grant after that. But, each town, we have 15-member towns, so she's gonna be in each town for several weeks, which is, you know, it's a finite period of time. There's way more to do than we're gonna have time to do, but hopefully we'll be able to, you know, we'd have to raise our dues, of course, if we were to keep Julie on for permanent, but, I've some of our towns have expressed interest in that, so maybe if it works out, then that might be a good direction
We
to
were
go
one of the first
in.
signups for this, right? Weren't we like the second town to sign up?
You're pretty early, that's why I'm here, this is the second town I'm at, so.
Yep,
Yeah.
Hingham beat you by just a little bit, but
Yeah.
Cohasset was second.
Could,
Yep.
could you just remind us when you said the hazardous materials collection is that
It's this coming Saturday, the
coming Saturday.
17th.
at Situate?
At Situate Highway Department on Captain Pierce Road. Bring a book, because it's probably gonna be a long line, but, if you go to our website, which is ssrcoop.info, or just Google a South Shore Recycling Cooperative, we have a whole page about hazardous waste, and the schedule's up there, and we have the fall schedule up too. And all the, you know, parameters, you know, what's acceptable materials, and, all the other rules.
I'll have Jen put something up on the Facebook page tomorrow too, with a link to that, so people can share it.
Great, thank
Oh,
you.
good. And there is you have a link on your DPW page too, or the transfer station page, I think it is, so,
Great,
Anything else?
good.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Very much.
Julie.
Look
See
forward
you
to
up
working
there.
with you, Julie.
Awesome, likewise.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next up is signing of bond and bearing papers. And Paul here? Welcome. This is
Hi.
good news.
Paul Harris, treasure collector. A lot of paper.
Wow.
You have to sign this.
All those red stickers we have to sign.
Yes,
Yeah.
most of them.
We'll be here.
We'll be here for a while, sorry. But there's a bond, which is a permanent, This is actually partially a refunding of $9.5 million for originally from 2009. We're saving over $900,000 on that.
Yeah.
And additionally, there's a lot of the equipment, a lot of the things that we actually voted at town meeting in May of 2016. We had originally done in a band, so now we're permanently bonding that for 3 years as all part of this one big package. And then the band, the short term, is actually 2 pieces of bound brook for almost $600,000. So that's what all those. And there is a vote that we need to take too, similar to last time.
So I
So
have
you
to
need
read
to
this
read
whole
it and
thing.
take a vote, yeah.
Ready,
So-
people?
You have to got a motion for the Board of Selectmen for the following.
I, the clerk of the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Cohasset, Massachusetts, certify that a meeting of the board held on June 13th, 2017, of which meeting all members of the board were duly notified and at which a quorum was present, the following votes were unanimously passed, all of which appear upon the official record of the board in my custody. Time out for a second. So do I read this before the votes are taken and say they're unanimous? Or do we vote first?
You take the vote.
So we take the vote.
Well, you have to read the you have to read it in order for that to know what they're voting on.
That in order to reduce interest costs, the treasurer is authorized to issue refunding bonds at one time or from time to time pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 21A of the general laws, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, to refund all or a portion of the town's $19,208,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2009, bonds dated August 1st, 2009, maturing on November 15 in the years 2020 through 2029, inclusive, collectively the refunded bonds, and that the proceeds of any refunding bonds issued pursuant to this vote shall be used to pay the principal, redemption premium, if any, and interest on the refunded bonds and costs of issuance of the refunding bonds. Further voted that the sale of the $10,310,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2017 bonds of the town dated June 22nd, 2017, referenced as the bonds, to Fidelity Capital Markets, a division of National Financial Services, LLC, at the price of $11,692,682.21, and accrued interest, if any, is hereby approved and confirmed. The bonds shall be payable on November 15th of the years and in the principal amounts and bear interest at the respective rates as follows. And there's a chart for the rates of the years 2017 to 2029. Further voted to approve the sale of a $597,400 1.50% general obligation bond anticipation note, the note, of the town dated June 22nd, 2017, and payable June 22nd, 2018 to Eastern Bank at par and accrued interest, if any, plus a premium of $1,499.47. Further voted that in connection with the marketing and sale of the bonds, the preparation and distribution of a notice of sale and preliminary official statement dated May 31st, 2017, and a final official statement dated June 5th, 2017, the bond official statement, each in such form as may be approved by the treasurer, be and hereby are ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. Hang in there, there's more. Further voted that in connection with the marketing and sale of the note, the preparation and distribution of a notice of sale and preliminary official statement dated May 31, 2017, and a final official statement dated June 5, 2017, each in some form as may be approved by the treasurer, be and hereby are ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. Further voted that the bond shall be subject to redemption at the option of the town upon such terms and conditions as are set forth in the bond official statement. Further voted to authorize the execution and delivery of a refunding escrow agreement to be dated June 22, 2017 between the town and U.S. Bank National Association as refunding escrow agent and paying agent. Further voted that the treasurer and the Board of Selectmen be and hereby are authorized to execute and deliver continuing and significant events disclosure undertakings in compliance with SEC Rule 15C2-12 in such forms as may be approved by bond counsel to the town, which undertaking shall be incorporated by reference in the bonds and the note as applicable for the benefit of the holders of the bonds and the note from time to time. Further voted that we authorize and direct the treasurer to review and update the town's post-issuance federal tax compliance procedures with such changes, if any, as the treasurer and bond council deem necessary to monitor and maintain the tax-exempt status of the bonds and note. Further voted, that each member of the Board of Selectmen, the town clerk, and the treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any and all such actions and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, or other documents as may be determined by them, or any of them, to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing votes. Almost there. I further certify that the votes were taken at a meeting open to the public, that no vote was taken by secret ballot, that a notice stating the place, date, time, and agenda for the meeting, which agenda included the adoption of the above votes, was filed with the town clerk, and a copy thereof posted in a manner conspicuously visible to the public at all hours in or on the municipal building that the office of the town clerk is located, or, if applicable, in accordance with an alternative method of notice prescribed or approved by the Attorney General as set forth in 940 CMR 29.032B, at least 48 hours, not including Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays, prior to the time of the meeting, and remain so posted at the time of the meeting that no deliberations or decision in connection with the sale of the bonds or the note were taken in executive session, all in accordance with GL Chapter 30A, Sections 18 through 25, as amended, dated June 13, 2017.
Mr. Chair, is that a filibuster?
So moved.
Filibuster would have to be my
Filibuster.
filibuster.
So there's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Please don't go through it again.
Could you repeat?
I have, I have
There's
paragraph
a
four,
couple
please.
questions.
Sure.
The effective rate the town is paying on the bond issuance is what?
1.7,
1.87, I think, right? Is that somewhere?
1.78 or
I think it's
1.87?
1.87.
1.87.
Because that's net the premium.
Right, and, well, it's the effective yield of the entire issue. Okay, and then the second question is, how are you treating, or maybe I should ask you, how are you treating the premium? Yeah, is that escrowed for town purposes, or are we applying it in some way, because it's a net gross revenue?
Right, we're gonna be using that on another capital project.
Are we?
The premium?
No, the state just changed the rules, of
Right.
how this all works. I would normally like to just have it roll right in, but apparently we can't do that here for
Right.
some bizarre reason. So it goes down to pay down other debt, we can use it to eliminate other debt.
No, that's exactly the point. I mean,
It has to be limited to for debt, for capital purposes, or, which I guess
We'll be deciding another time.
Okay.
All
right, guys, here they come.
In savings for this guy. That's pretty good.
This is a big night for saving money,
Yeah, that's good.
making money.
It wasn't a go.
Thanks, Paul.
You ready?
Nope, nope. just
This one's real.
You're gonna keep moving along, I'll just pass these down as a...
Tracy, you get an extra pen?
Oh, sure. What are you doing before?
And next update is the investment update.
Yep.
Sorry.
Is it more? Oh, for God's sakes. Did you sell the whole town?
These are just for you, as a clerk.
Thanks.
We actually just bought another town.
Ah,
Is it Galen?
fair enough. Do they have a commercial district?
It's a nice factory. You did. You did the price.
Wait another year?
Do you want to start talking about the,
Yeah,
oh yeah, let me
There's
small
more.
finish.
big and listen, it's not the same. Same time.
Well, Paul's still writing this, so, trying to what documents. The AAA, let me talk, so as part of this issuance, the town needed to be re-rated, that's what happens every time we do a bond sale. And the AAA rating was confirmed quite strongly, I think I sent that to all of you. It was they used the word strong a lot. Strong economics, strong budget, strong management, strong fiscal picture. And it was nice to read and nice to see. Our call, actually, when you do a bond rating call, there's always some questions, we review things, it went pretty fast. I mean, there was key questions that we talked about, but I think it was, we've established a real level of credibility with the Standard & Poor's folks. And again, we talked about, OPEB, we talked about pension, we talked about all those things, but they look at them, the town is on, they recognize that, everyone is in the same boat. They also recognize the last is actually paying attention and working towards these things. So it was a nice affirmation, so.
I noticed in the, that they emphasized in the report the fact that we had reserves and that we had kept those reserves full. I think they mentioned that 2 or 3 times, about how important that is. And the state just had a review with, unfortunately, got lowered by a notch or 2. But they noted in that report that one of the main reasons was because the rainy day fund reserves hadn't been replenished. So it's something they obviously watched very significantly, and the state took a hit for it, but we got rewarded for it. And again, we're one of 15 or 16 communities out of 351 that have a AAA rating. It's really a pretty good and useful achievement for the town, because it lowers our borrowing costs. Amongst other things.
And the point you raised, Kevin, is really important. The reserves matter, and they matter because if it rains, not just like the Texas storm we had about a half an hour ago, right? It actually rains. And you have to be prepared, and the reserves matter. And you need to watch it in good times and bad times. So we're continuing to put money aside, we're continuing to do that because it's important. To achieve this, you need to actively manage it, otherwise it could easily slip. I mean, the state has had rainy day fund forever, but it does catch up with you if you don't pay attention. So it's something, by the way, you never get to sit and rest on your laurels. You're only as good as your last update. So.
A lot of folks won't recall. A lot of folks won't recall 20 years ago that the state of Massachusetts was, well, it wasn't quite that bad, but it was, it certainly was headed in the wrong direction.
Oh, yeah.
And S&P is, of the 3 major ratings agencies, S&P is fairly deliberative. They don't make big moves, and they didn't make a big one in this case either. It was that they dropped the state of Massachusetts 1 notch from A+ to A. But the point is that S&P did it. Moody's is typically very reactive, and Moody's held steady. So it's just that's a bit like your favorite grandparent reprimanding you. So it is a big deal.
And S&P actually rates us too, so I mean, that's
Yeah.
important.
Whoops, sorry guys, I have more fun for you.
So that was good. That was a very good sign, and I just wanted to. So,
Well, congratulations to you and our finance team, Paula, and all those that work with you. This is an accomplishment we're very proud of, as well as it's very useful for us.
Chris, was there anything that they saw that was worrisome?
Well, they point out that, if we don't maintain our reserves, and we don't, maintain our management, and we don't keep the policies and follow them, that can be a cause for.
Right, they said in the last paragraph, we're gonna be back,
Yeah.
and we're gonna check your reserves, and this will be okay, but if your reserves go down, you can expect a downgrade. So that was part of why, they really emphasized that, so.
It's something that you just have to constantly, be aware of it. So, trying to fill over us a little bit here as we use that term.
You got any stories you want to tell us? Any recycling jokes?
Is that recycling jokes? It's a knock joke.
You guys can't multitask?
Really? Go ahead.
I think Paula doesn't want to.
You want to talk about the investment?
Yeah, I don't want you to start confusing documents or anything, so.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
go,
it's actually
before
more
you guys
policy.
leave, I'm gonna go make sure everything's signed.
All right, and then come back if you need to fix it.
And yes, so if I show up at the end of the meeting, that's why. All right. Investments. This is as of March 31st. The news is better. We've had no negatives this time, which is nice. So, I guess our lowest performing was in the expendable trust area, which you would expect at 1.54, and the highest was in the OPEB area, 4.75. So that's what we arranged for the quarter. All their portfolios gained this quarter, which was nice, and they're all beating many of their benchmarks. The 1 year, some of them are not beating that as much, but they are beating on the long term and for the quarter. So the expendable trusts were up 2% for the quarter, 4% for the year, and 4.25% for 3 years. Permanent trusts were 4% for the quarter, 8% for the year, and over 7% since the inception of 2014. So we're gaining some more time with these funds too. Some of them we've had for a good 3 years or more. And for OPEB, they gained over 4% for the quarter, almost 9% for the year, and over 10%. So they're both just shy of 6% since inception. So they're doing pretty well as well. Anyone have any questions?
Did you say on the OPEB, the percentage increase was?
The OPEB? 1 year, they're like at almost 9, and the other one's just over 10.
That's what our return is
10%.
then?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty good considering interest rates are around
Yeah.
1.5.
I mean, overall, they're a little bit lower, so you can see there's a bubble in there.
Yeah.
They're at, 3.46 and 5.98 for about 3-year time period.
Oh, when you speak with the advisors, and again, would you ask them to provide, a full review with MPT statistics, modern portfolio theory stats?
Sure.
So it's just simply would give us a fuller view of the volatility measures that each of the portfolios would experience or have experienced, what we might expect in good markets and bad markets from those very same portfolios and so on. So it adds some context around the performance figures.
We'll do that.
Thanks.
Have that with June, with the larger report.
That's fine. It shouldn't be very difficult for them to pull it up at all.
Okay.
Okay? It's, I'm sorry, one other thing. The first of the trusts that you mentioned, I think it's their shortest term investments.
The expendable trust,
The
yeah.
expendable trust, thank you. That's, who is it that manages that one? Is that Bartholomew?
Bartholomew has some, and Rockland Trust has the others.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So Steve, expendable trust, what would that be?
That's all short-term reserves.
Stabilization, stuff that you could appropriate next town meeting.
Yeah.
Permanent trusts are more like the scholarships. Avalon, the equipment and stuff there.
So
Cemeteries.
longer term,
Yeah.
non-accessible funds, or more difficult to access.
You can access them, but it's not like like stabilization, if something happens, you could really put a bite into that, but most of the permanent trust, you're just spending the interest for the most part.
And then on the expendable side, liquidity is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Availability and stability of the asset base.
Thanks. All right. Any other questions?
Thanks.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul.
Our signing party is almost done.
I think it is time.
And the house.
In a way.
It is
one.
About a $10 million house.
Right.
Except it's actually a water system.
That's the last one.
It's almost a physical exercise.
There's one more?
Just double check and we're here.
All right, I'll go.
Make sure we did everything right.
Thank you very much.
Paula.
Thank you, Paula.
Okay, and we're almost out of time. Next up is appointments, boards, and committees. Chris, all of these are currently the ones that are able to be filled. Their applications are complete, they're willing to do it, and some of them are, some of them are reappointments, some of them are appointments. We're going to start first with a joint meeting with the planning board, with associate member appointment.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Clark Brewer from the Planning Board. We have a quorum. Mike, Eric, could you come up? Mike Dickey, Eric Potter. Eric Potter just got elected as a full member, and he was our associate member.
Yeah, so that was a rough election for us all.
Tough, it was tough. He had to resign, but now we're short one associate member. And we've had the lucky, and I think, as far as I know, this has never happened before, two excellent candidates have come forward who are interested in the associate position, which will expire at the next regular town election. Then we'll have another associate member that gets elected, or it could be one of the candidates that could run for that position, having had almost a year of experience. And then there's also another regular member position that comes up next year. I think it would be great if, this is Andrew Gelson, Amy Glassmeyer. It would be great, I think if you have questions, but it'd be great if both of you could just give a brief, if you want to pull up a chair.
Pull up a chair, yep. Absolutely.
Give a brief statement of interest, your background, brief, but, and then if the selectmen have any questions or the planning board has any questions, they can ask them. And then the planning board will take a vote and make a recommendation for a candidate, unless you want to do it a different way.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
And are you officially in session?
We're officially in session. We have a quorum. We're,
Can I just ask a point of procedure? On these joint ones, from what I'm used to seeing of these, is we're now sitting in joint. There's three planning, there's five of us, so this is now a meeting of 8.
Yeah.
And
So we can
it
do
would
one
be
vote?
that-
Yes.
It would be that vote that votes.
that'd be fine.
Combined vote.
Yes, yeah, all of us.
Um,
So you don't have to do it on your own.
That sounds good. Amy Glassmeyer, if you don't mind, just to give a brief statement of interest, and we can start and then we'll have Andrew do it.
All right, thank you very much for allowing me to be here today. My name is Amy Glassmeyer. I live at 63 Howe Road. I've lived in Cohasset since 2009. I relocated from State College, Pennsylvania. My son finished high school here. My husband is an exploration geologist, and I'm a professor of urban and regional planning at MIT. The reason that I want to join the planning board is because I'm a planner, and I think Cohasset is a very special place. I have observed it for a period of time and realized that it's an opportunity to me as an educator to actually experience small town planning. It's also an opportunity for me to understand a lot more about my own community, and then finally I hope that I could lend some value. Technically by training, I'm an economist. I teach economic development, but I have served in various planning positions in other places that I've lived.
Thank you.
Andrew, go ahead.
My name is Andrew Gelson. I'm currently Assistant General Counsel with Rockland Trust Company. In my function at Rockland Trust Company, I manage a like-kind exchange subsidiary of the bank. This is how I originally joined the bank, when I sold that company to the bank back in 2007. I've been a resident of the town since 2007. Prior to that, I lived in Sandwich for a number of years. While living in Sandwich, I was on that town's zoning board of appeals. I was on the zoning board of appeals for approximately 6 years, was chairman for 2 of those years, and we certainly had our fair share of issues at the zoning board of appeals in Sandwich. This town reminds me in many ways of Sandwich the way it was 15 years ago in terms of many of the planning and development challenges that it faces right now. I'd say my primary advantage to being on the board is being an attorney. Although being in Cohasset, it's hard to walk down the street corner and not trip over an attorney. We certainly have many of them on the board. And I'm certainly willing to serve the board in any capacity. I think that my strengths are being a good listener, understanding that owners of property have development rights which need to be protected, but realizing also that the town has laws that need to be enforced. I believe in making sure that all people who appear before the board are fairly treated, that they're given opportunity to fully present their views, their plans, and also that the citizens of the town, when they have matters and they wish to speak on particular matters coming before the board, they should be fully and fairly heard as well. So I think the board has it's nice that you have the ability to decide between two associate members. It's, in many towns, it's a luxury to have the opportunity to have that decision. I think that Amy and I are very diverse candidates. If I was probably in the position sitting on the planning board right now, if you were looking for diversity of diversity of members with different perspectives, I think Amy would be a great candidate. I think that I'm also a very good candidate. I might represent a segment that the board has representation in already, and that you have one or more attorneys on the board. But pleased to be here tonight and meet you and offer my credentials for your consideration.
I think both the candidates are excellent. We have a full-time member who has not attended planning board meetings for a number of months and has left the planning board for long lapses. The planning board asked that member to resign, and he refused because he's not interested in attending planning board meetings. This is an elected member of the planning board that refuses to attend. It's unfortunate that we have two great candidates, but we only have one position right now.
Could I ask,
Go ahead. Yeah.
what can we do about elected officials who don't show up for their job?
You change the bylaws. One of the reasons that the town changed the bylaw to allow the associate member to be more active is because of the circumstance that presented itself a year ago, which we thought had been corrected, but there's been some other issues which I won't go into tonight. I have asked council, if an appointed board is something different than selected, to change members anytime, if there's any attendance issues or anything. Elected boards are entirely different, unless somebody dies or resigns or moves out of town. There's really not much you can do.
Or there's a recall provision in the bylaws.
And there was a recall provision in the bylaws.
Which, there's no recall petition in the bylaws as of yet. Then you have the
I've
recall.
checked with council and also the Attorney General's office and the State Ethics Office, and the recall option in the bylaw is really the only methodology for
And
an
you need to
elected member.
pass that initially to allow it, and then you'd have to go through an election cycle.
Right.
And then you could potentially have a recall election, then that person who is, if he loses the recall, can very well run again in the following election.
Right.
So it's not an automatic removal from office permanently, it's only a removal for the time period until the special election is made.
Right. So.
And obviously,
not-
this person's aware of
All the laws.
the law.
I can't say.
May I simply ask that we entertain what would be needed at a future meeting with respect to correcting, or I should say addressing, an absentee elected member? Whether that's, if it's a recall, that's fine, what does it require? I don't want to divert the conversation at the moment, but this is not something that we should sit idly by.
It's a vote for recall election.
Well,
In the
as I say,
bylaws.
maybe it
To
makes.
enter in the bylaws, and then you would need to have a recall election.
Well, again, I don't want to divert the conversation at the moment, but I think it's a worthwhile discussion to have, so.
Could you just let us know about the associate member, whether they have voting powers, and if you're down a member, and how that works for
That's right.
to actually execute?
Associate member attends all meetings and can vote on any matter that the chairman requests them to vote on. Usually these are in cases where we have a special permit or a long series of meetings, and one or another member may not have attended all the meetings, or at the final hearing, we don't have a full board. So we would be able to have the associate member vote on those kinds of special permits, site plans, hearings that take a long period of time.
Special permits, do you have to, is it a 2/3 vote, or is it just a simple majority for most of your votes?
Special permits, it would be a 2/3 vote, or
Whatever,
a
majority plus.
supermajority.
Okay, all right.
You have to have people there, don't you?
Right,
Yeah.
right. I just remember hearing about one, I don't know whether it was a tie, or you were down a member, and something just failed on a tie or something.
That's right. Let's see, there was one vote at West Corner.
That's what it was.
That we only had 3 members. This is the case where that regular member wasn't in attendance, and it needed a unanimous vote, and it got 2, 3, 4.
Needed a unanimous vote of the board, not
That's right.
necessarily of those
Of those present.
sitting at the hearing,
Yeah,
or at the vote.
because we were shorthanded.
Yep.
So can I ask one of the candidates a question?
Great.
Amy, you had indicated that you have planning experience. Could you sort of describe what that is, what kind of planning experience you had, what you do?
So when I lived in State College, Pennsylvania, I lived in a small township next to the larger city, and I served as a volunteer planning member.
Okay, and you did for the community.
That's correct.
Right now, the planning board is called they have to do periodically for the development of a master plan, which, they have the members for it already, but it's an important, planning type function. And I was just wondering, have you looked into that at all? Do you know
I have. I've been
what
trained.
what you feel
So
is
I have 2 degrees. One is a professional degree in planning, in which master planning is a major element of what we learn.
So you have a degree in that and you teach it as well?
Yes, correct.
Because what that is, I guess I don't have to tell you, is that we're looking, 10, 15, 20 years into the future in a number of different categories, and you have, sounds like, pretty extensive academic experience in that.
I have academic experience. I also am brought in on circumstances and places where there is the need for facilitation. I work with communities. We take students into communities that are doing planning-related types of activities. So we
Long-range planning.
long-range planning. We do everything from corners to districts in places like New Orleans.
And are you familiar with statistical projections that are done in long-range planning and so
Yes.
forth?
Yes.
What's going on in CBA right now in terms of openings?
Could you say? Are you asking me?
No, I'm
Chris.
talking to Chris.
Oh.
Sorry.
That was a trick question.
Oh, well, I was like, okay, let me know what the acronym is.
There isn't an opening at the moment. There's one member up for renewal who's asked to be reappointed. I believe in the next cycle, I think we're up to, I think it's 2. There's a couple of cycles where you have 2 and 3 members on, because I believe there's 3 associates on that because of potential recusal issues and all. So I believe the next cycle, there's a number of members that are open. But I have to double check. I've only fully focused on this, but I can get you that information pretty easily.
Okay.
If I could be so bold, I think what he's driving at is we have 2 great candidates. We don't want to let both go away, so, but there are other openings, obviously, no matter how this plays out.
And they get to pull papers in March,
Right,
which is coming right up.
right.
Don't say that, we just got in summer.
Right,
We'll get
right.
through the summer.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I agree. I mean, 2 great candidates. We have, in the past, had a dearth of candidates that would come forth, and oftentimes it was catch candidate. This is 2 absolutely fantastic. We have a master plan ongoing, we have a harbor plan ongoing, we have planning
Open space
for,
plan. Yeah.
for the town hall, and a lot of the planning that's going on is it not just 5 or 10 years, it's within the next 2 or 3. It's going to be fairly soon.
Affordable housing.
Affordable housing.
There's a
Yeah.
lot going on, so there's lots of places for both of you.
I guess the one question I'll ask, would either of you be willing to withdraw and look for something else next year? Because
I'd be happy to serve the town in any capacity in which you may need some assistance.
Because you know, we have, the stable is never full, and this is probably one of the times where.
I would do the same.
Okay,
Oh, we
so
don't
what's
let
the,
any- we don't
what's
let
the
anybody
will,
go.
what's the,
We just keep
do you have
track of
a preferred candidate?
We track you down, so.
Well, you know, we had originally discussed having a planning board vote and then making a recommendation to the selectmen for a vote. But if it's a full vote, someone's gonna have to, you know, make a motion.
Yep. You want it?
I just want to understand.
It's pretty obvious to me we have two,
Yeah.
we're blessed with
Outstanding.
having two
Right.
very qualified candidates. So what happens in a small town like this is, once we know you're there and you're talented and eager as you are, you're gonna find a useful position, because we need the talent that I have heard before, that both of you. So this is really more, in my view, a question of when, not how, or if, when, yeah, and not what particular one. So this won't be as uncomfortable as you see, because the time moves on pretty quickly, and there may even be an opening on this board, it sounds like, but if not, then
Right.
your talents are obviously needed, and I think you'll fit in, both of you, to a lot of places.
I just have to say, I get really upset when people run for an elected position and then don't show up. And then we have two professionals that really want to do the job, and we can't put them both on because somebody's taking a vacation. I mean,
It's frustrating.
it's really, really annoying, especially with all the work you guys have to do in the next 2 years. And, you know, I hope we move quickly to fix this problem, whichever way we have to do it.
It's a logistical hardship for the planning board to make sure we have a quorum. You know, tonight, we just made quorum.
Yeah.
And we
Three
discussed,
members.
we discussed this it is difficult, because it's a big commitment, to be on the planning board. I could say from my perspective, so the quorum, having the quorum, and you know, this is an elected position, you're voluntarily going forth to do this. It does compromise the board, it compromises the town, the citizens of the town as well. Particularly for me, this is a difficult position to be in, because I find both, candidates to be even more qualified than myself, a much more life experience, much more professional experience. I mean, I could stand to learn and benefit a lot from both of them, and having,
Imagine if this were your board.
exactly,
Yeah.
so it's very difficult.
Feel that. And not only that, to your point, there are all these other tangential planning projects going on around town, which you are all trying to bounce in and out of too, so
So
we hear you in I think
Yeah, and the other thing I
frustrations.
want to say is, because of open meeting laws, we have to evaluate candidates in front of the TV, which we all have talked a lot about, and we feel, if you're not used to being in front of the TV, it can be very uncomfortable, and we've had situations where people had to endure a lot, and it's not fair. And, I just want to say personally, I appreciate the fact that you're getting in front of a camera and putting yourselves out like that. And hopefully we can take care of this in a way that everybody's comfortable down the road here.
Everybody wins. Okay.
Is there, I just have a question. Is there, from the board members, the elected board members' views, is there a set of skills or specific skills that you believe the board needs most of all?
Right now.
Well, I would say, generally speaking, the board is strongest with a diverse board, with the most diverse backgrounds and skill sets to bring to the table, the broadest perspective possible, where we're the planning board is both creating laws, bylaws, changes to zoning, and then trying to implement those and getting feedback from. So there's a back and forth between kind of the big picture, long range, trying to figure out what's best for the town, and then advocate for that, and then dealing with the applications that come up relative to those zoning changes.
And just to piggyback off that, I think the diversification, I think it's important to have it, not just a skill set, but diversification of point of views.
Yeah.
So it really, we don't have a board that just is in one, has a particular view set. I think it's refreshing, again, from my perspective, to have seen the other board members with different views on, speaking for different constituents of the town. The planning board covers all those. I think that's as important, as skill set as well.
If I may, one factor that's important is that if the town has a full-time town planner, then, that might indicate a different board composition than when you don't have a full-time professional town planner. So
We're
I
getting
honestly
there.
think, I wouldn't belabor the point too much, because I think Amy's skills are unique and would be exactly what I would anticipate the board would need in the absence of a professional town planner, so don't belabor the matter.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Amy, last name, sorry.
Glassmeyer?
Amy Glassmeyer for this position. I do want to say principally, I think I would agree with what Andrew just said, which is that her particular skill set is right on, exactly on spot. If we had two positions open, I'd be very, very enthusiastic about both of you being on this board, because I see before me a very strong planning board, and then who knows, it may happen. So, but anyways, for that reason, and the fact that also Andrew's more enthusiastically offered to withdraw twice now, so, those are my reasons, and I will nominate Amy.
Second. Any other nominations? No, there's no second, so.
Others?
Any other nominations?
I do want to add in, Andrew, I hope you're sincere about your willingness to continue on. As of tonight, I found out we need a constable down at the RTF, so. And no, so I'm very serious about
License
this.
to carry.
For the just for the purposes of moving this along, I'll withhold any further nomination. However, wish to thank you in advance for your future work.
It's my pleasure.
Great.
Oh, we're looking
very
forward,
much.
we're
Hear from
looking
us.
forward to it.
Thank you.
All right, it's no further nominations. I'd ask for a vote for the planning associate.
Do you have a second?
member?
Second.
Yeah.
There's no second on the nomination.
Okay.
For Amy Glassmeyer for the planning board associate member. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 8-0.
Great.
Congratulations.
I just want to say that, it's rare to have somebody who's in a situation like that is as forthright and kind as you are. And it really bodes well for whatever you end up doing, and I hope you end up on this board.
And very classy too, I may add.
Yes, and there's two positions coming up for election
Next year.
For the planning board in the spring.
And it doesn't take that many signatures.
Right, I need a motion to adjourn for the planning board.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Congratulations.
much. Appreciate it.
Nice to meet you, thanks. Thanks.
Can I just riff a little bit on this? I mean, this is an untenable situation. It's been going on for a long time. There are numerous situations where I know who this person is, and it's really uncooperative.
We're on TV, don't forget.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Amy. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Next up, for the committee, the Cohasset Common Historic District Commission.
I need a cooler over here.
You guys?
So this is,
If it's okay, you're free to.
No, I'm fine.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So Chris, the next one up is the.
The next one is the
Cohasset
Cohasset Common Historic District. At this point, Tracy has all the names. I don't have them in front of me, so, and you do too, I think, Mr. Chairman. You have the other names in the big packet? Or do you have the list, Tracy,
Yeah,
that we can work off?
Yeah.
Okay.
Reappointment Jacqueline Clark, appointment for Gary Gardner and Mark Toomey, 3-year terms.
They're each 3-year terms?
Yes.
Yeah, let's go.
So I move that we nominate to the Cohasset Common Historic District, Jacqueline Clark, Mark Toomey, and Gary Gardner.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And they pass. Next up is the Community Preservation Committee. There are 2. Gilles Bernetti and...
There's 2 citizen at-large positions open. There's 3 positions open. We have 2
We have 2,
reappointments, and there's still one open
There's an open
seat.
seat.
And I did talk to somebody today.
That's Russ Benetti and Margaret Charles for both for reappointment for a 3-year term. Ask for a motion to approve the reappointment of Russell Benetti and Margaret Charles
So moved.
to CPC 3-year. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And there's no vacancy there that hasn't been filled yet?
Correct.
There's one more citizen at large.
And
How did you let Andrew out of the room?
I got bigger designs, I already taken notes for him.
And not to belabor this point either on CBC, so when the committee was first set up many years ago, all the citizens happened to be in the same block. Because we went back a couple of years ago, we fixed all the terms, and so we're still exploring how we might want to rejigger it, so there's a citizen of every year as opposed to citizens only have once every 3 years. The others are all representatives of boards. But we have to do, I think, something a little more elaborate with that, so we'll come back to you with some recommendations. You said you called Elder Affairs, right?
Elder Affairs.
Yep, so, next up is Council on Elder Affairs, 3-year term. And Paul Pierce is here from Council on Elder Affairs. Thank you for coming.
Good evening. What a unique evening.
This is, what a great committee, they're all here.
I know you were talking trash earlier. I just want you to know that we recycle every Monday at Elder Affairs. We recycle knowledge. So you guys come to cafe every day from 9 to 11. You'll get all the recycled knowledge you could use.
And stories.
Yes. Paul Kears, 39 Oak Coach Road, Chairman of the Cohasset Elder Affairs Board. And we have 2 positions open for new associates, which are non-voting members. And our board has selected, and we have submitted the applications to the town for Sarah Livermore and Elizabeth Harpy, who are with us tonight. And those 2 associate positions became open because at Elder Affairs, when we have people resign from our director positions, we fill them with the associates that are on our board and move people up. So we had 2 people that had resigned after their terms, multiple terms, which was Cindy Shortwood and Vivi McCarron. So moving to full voting position with those vacancies is Diana Karcher and Rich Hines. Originally we had Jim Carpenter on that, but Rich Hines was next in line. And they will be, Diana Karcher and Rich Hines are filling the vacancy of Cindy and Vivi. One goes to 2019, one goes to 2018.
Can you tell us who's filling which piece?
Sure. Diana Karcher will be completing the term of Cynthia Shortwood, which would expire in 2019. And Rich Hines will complete the term of Vivi McCarron, which expires in 2018.
Okay.
And so in June 30th of 2018, he'll take it upon himself to renew or put in for a full term. And we have reappointments of 3 of our existing directors, which is Sue Reagan, Eleanor Barrett, and Tana Carlson.
And would that be a full board when you're complete with this?
Yes, yes we will.
How many is the full board?
It's a total of 12 members.
12 members is the full board, and you have 2 associates?
3.
3 associates?
9 plus 3. 9.
Oh, yeah,
Nine
so
plus 3.
so there's 3. And when there's an opening at the full, one of the associates automatically fills in?
No.
They have
So
to come
we,
here.
right, so associates are non-voting, so we have to have a quorum of 5 out of the 9 voting
Right.
members, right?
So then you come here for their appointment to full members, that's the way it works?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you want me to make a motion?
Yes, please.
Any questions?
No.
Questions or comments?
So I'll,
Ask for a motion for the Council of Elder Affairs.
okay, so I move that we reappoint for 3-year terms Susan Reagan, Tana Carlson, Eleanor Barrett, and 2 new associate members for, how long are their terms? I'm sorry.
3 years.
It's 2 new associates for 3-year terms, Sarah Livermore and Elizabeth Tarpey. And also appoint Diana Karcher through 2019 as a full member, and Rich Hines through 2018 as a full member.
Is there a second?
Second.
Did I get that?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
That's a full
opposed?
vote.
Congratulations.
Great, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for being
Paul.
patient.
I'll get some more for you. Okay.
So next up is the fence viewer, 1-year term. And the fence viewer goes back to colonial times, and then even before that, the Old English law, common law, where the fence viewer would be used to settle land disputes of where the fence is supposed to be. So it's the first round when neighbors want to discuss on where to put a fence and whether it's the right spot.
Well, actually, yeah,
before
these
litigation.
board of selectmen, I believe, can then assign them to a task if we wanted to, and then they would report back to us. And often that task is mediating between neighbors as to the stone walls and where they're going and whether the cows are going over them or vehicles. or
How
whatever.
often does this position get used in town?
I don't know that it has been used in a very long time. It's more ceremonial these days. I'm sure they even have a badge of, they may have like what, a surveying stick or something as a badge of office. I'm not even
Hey,
sure.
Scrooge, wait till we get to the clock. So clock
Okay,
maybe.
so who's up?
Yeah, the two, it's, I believe it's Len Pratt and
And then Sawchuck.
Sawchuck and Pratt are the fence viewers?
Well, Annette.
But it's a net.
It's a net.
It's not
that's
wait,
funny.
wait. You want a motion?
Of
So I'd
course.
ask for a motion for fence viewer, one-term reappointments for Annette Sawcheck and Glenn Pratt.
So moved.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Jack moved in, seconded?
Yeah.
Either both. Next up is the Historical Commission. It's a 3-year term. Susan Wadsworth for appointment. And I'd ask for a motion for appointment Susan Wadsworth to
So
the
moved.
Historical Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0, there's no noes. Next up is the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, 1-year term. There is a reappointment for an alternate member and a reappointment for a full member. Full member is Christopher Senior. That's you. Are you willing to do it? All right, and Clark Brewer. I'd ask for a motion to reappoint the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, 1-year term, Chris Senior and Clark Brewer.
So moved.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up is Norfolk County Advisory Board, 1-year term.
Boom, ba-dum-bum.
Are you willing to do it?
Sure.
Yep, okay.
We need you there.
We'll be Jack.
I like buffets at the Wallaston Golf Club.
I think that's probably gonna be a little more important the next year or two.
I agree, and that's the
Yeah.
stuff we want to do, so.
Yeah, and I absolutely.
So I think having you
Can you
there.
map out how we can get
with
out
some-
of that pension fund and into something that looks like it might be?
Not sure we want to talk about that now.
I'd ask that we have a
I'm just
motion
asking
to
you as a board
approve,
member.
ask for a motion to approve Norfolk County Advisory Board 1-year term.
I so move.
Is there a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next up is South Shore Regional School District Representative Kenny Clare, wishes to be reappointed. He's been there, I think it's 20 years now, isn't it?
He's been the vice chairman now for a few years too.
Yes, he was chairman for a long time. I think he's been on there.
He's been representing Cohasset for a long time. He's very, very involved in
Yeah.
that school.
So I'm very glad he wished to be reappointed, so I'd ask for a motion to reappoint Kenny Thayer to South Shore Regional School District.
So moved.
All in
Second.
favor? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
He came by the other day, and he retired a year ago. He looks like he's found the fountain of youth. He looked like he dropped like 10 years. I said, boy, not doing snow plowing in the winter is really makes you
Really
more
helps.
relaxed. So,
Next up is the zoning board of,
strategy.
is it advisory or administration?
zoning board of appeals.
Appeals. 3-year term, and Woody Chittick has asked for reappointment to the ZBA for 3-year term. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And he passes.
There'll be a couple more, I think we have a couple more slots from these to fill, potentially CPC and Historic District, and the next round will be next week, the rest of the committees. So we're still trying to pull some names in. For example, we're trying to get the Cohasset Community Cable, and so we're still pulling names in. A couple of people, for example, I found out that was an associate member of a board who didn't realize he had to reapply, so he's not, so we're pulling in some.
Yeah, no, no. So you said it would be at the next meeting, but is that
The
the
third, no,
next?
I mean,
the next?
the next full meeting is
Full
the
meeting?
27th, that's the next. And if we have to do,
The 27th?
sometimes some dribble into the
Yeah.
summer depending on what.
Yeah, try to get as many
We're
done.
still on for the 20th for a goal.
Planning,
Correct.
yeah.
Can I get that from you?
I tried to get all the ones that were ready to go, at least get done.
Yep.
So that we
Yeah, that's good.
some of them.
Great.
So next up is the fiscal year 17 goals and objectives. I
Okay.
made the mistake of not posting the meeting, so that's why I was delayed. I apologize. I fouled it up, but it's on the 20th. I'm hopeful we can get it all done in one night. That'll depend on how well disciplined we are at the meeting, so I'll turn it over to Tony Sue.
To me, well, to both of us.
Right.
What happened to other, all right, there you go.
this
So-
is again an update on what our, the
Right.
year that's pretty much behind us.
The year that's, I know, we're about to celebrate the new year, June 30th.
Absolutely.
So this is the end of this is our final report on this year's, of these goals.
Yes.
It's like watching the NFL highlights of the Patriots
Exactly.
season, right?
So I just need to get some, next year,
Fashion shots of Gronk in the end.
next year we'll get some video. So
Tom
some
Brady
pictures.
chucking the bomb. Okay, we got it.
So, we won the Super Bowl, yay. We're going to Disneyland. So, a quick update of our goals for this past year. So there were several key categories: facilities and infrastructure, communications, staff and volunteers, technology, planning, and financial. And we'll jump right into the goals. So the first goal was to create an action plan for two major building projects, which is Town Hall and Public Safety. So let's talk about Town Hall first. Committee's been appointed, I think, as you all know. We've successfully retained both an owner's project manager and an architectural firm. There's a timetable to get this vetted and to check the boxes, to get it in front of this, keep it in front of this board, to get it in front of town meeting, and then get it in front of town meeting again, and the voters, depending on how they choose to go forward. There are concurrent assessments going on now of building, staff and program needs, and the beginning of design. After a vetting process which began literally last December, or last December, about looking at every piece of town-owned property, looking at other alternatives, and then coming down to two town-owned locations as primary sites. The committee is now recommending the building remain here, and we're looking to do an update with them later in the summer to get an update.
Looking to do an update meeting into the board?
For you, yes.
Yeah, because at this point, the board has not been briefed. There have been open meetings, but we have not heard as a board where this committee is, what they're thinking, and the like.
So the committee is, we'd like to set that up, and they did come in front of us, in front of this, a couple of months ago. But it's definitely time, and we'd like to set up a regular communication strategy and to do some joint meetings. I think that'd be very effective. So there's a lot of analysis being done now on a lot of fronts. One, of course, being how to maximize the use of the space in the old building. There's already the original building. There's a lot of creative work that the architectural firm's already done that's going to allow a lot more creative use already than was in the prior studies. So there will be more updates on that. But so that's on track and on target. The next project was public safety. So one of the realities is that town hall takes a lot of time and energy. So here's where we are in this one. So I'm going to give you an action plan, though not action. We really need to do a needs assessment of this building. Really, just like with town hall, we take all the prior work, we start from the beginning, and we ask all the questions. So it's not just predetermined outcomes. And I do think it's really important, even more so than this building, to coordinate the public safety needs in conjunction with the master planning process to see where we're going, where we're growing, what our needs are going to be, and how we can coordinate with other communities to best serve those needs. So I think that this meshing into the planning process is actually really helpful. I'm going to be appointing an internal working group, and I've talked to both chiefs. We have some funding lined up, I think, internally now. And the goal would be to have a report that's done in conjunction with those other planning analyses that we can talk about in the spring and say, okay, where do we want to go? Because the next step to that, after we determine what our needs are, is where do you put it? How big is it? Can you do work with others? Can you make it a combined facility?
And I just want to say, for me, I really want to know what the total ticket's going to be on town hall before we start talking about a public safety building. I mean, I think it would be bad process to not have a number on town hall and, be halfway down the road on a public safety building that we can't afford, right?
And in this case, I think the most important element, Jack, and I understand that point exactly, is to get an assessment of what we really even need. I mean, let's not talk about buildings unless we talk about what we really, what we need and what we project we're going to need and how we can best fulfill that. And that really needs to be a first step, because then you can determine the rest of it and figure out how it's going to work.
Well, to Jack's point, though, there's got to be a parameter on, a cost parameter on town hall. It cannot be an open checkbook.
There's no question that's fully understood, and I think one of the critical elements is not, obviously the making the project the very best value is critical. The other is to find as many alternative funding sources as possible as well. And one of the great aspects of the firm that's been retained to do the architectural design work is that they've done this creatively with other funding sources in other communities to find ways of restoring older buildings and to marry them with newer facilities and share costs in a way that can be very quick, that can be very well done. And also, I think just the approach they've taken to the old building has made a lot more space usable and is even potentially usable even today. But there's been a lot of meetings with other groups about the auditorium, for example, how to make that a really functional, historic and very modernly usable space as well for a variety of uses. I think there's a lot more conversation to be had about it, a lot more conversation. So, but those parameters are where they're going. There'll be a lot of conversation about that, so everyone understands that. So that's again, this has not been left by the wayside. I just think as the year has gone on, it's been pretty obvious that running two major projects in parallel at this point is probably not the best idea. Though we do have we have a lot of information we just need to know about, and we've been able to do a little work between the relocation of the dispatchers to Hingham as part of that regional facility. It opened up some more space in the building. We've done some additional renovation on the fire side to do some cleanup. There's going to be a redoing of the floor. I mean, the building it's not perfect by any means, but we're making very good use of the space.
It
There's
looks
been
much
some
better
work
than it used to look.
It's been cleaned up, and the staff on both sides take a lot of pride in it, and they're being very creative. For example, the guys on the fire side, we've got some donated equipment, and they're turning the bay into an impromptu gym multiple times a week to do workouts and stuff, which is great. And there's been work to try to figure out how to make that, and make it available to the folks on the police side. So there's a good spirit down there, and I think they're doing good work. The next piece of facilities infrastructure was cataloging public and private ways. So we do have this big now master list of public and private ways, which Brian is now hammering out some of the what are they really things, those little roads that kind of widen the woods, which don't lend themselves to easy classification. The private way policy has been adopted, the bylaw has been adopted, and now we're just waiting on the Attorney General to say yes, which I expect will come in the next 2 to 6 weeks. And a critical part of this is we talked about identifying all of our external infrastructure, particularly with byways and sidewalks. We've won a state grant to upgrade our GIS system and to do a flyover and get really detailed, it's not metric, it's geometric data. There's another term for it.
Geodesic?
It's a big dome.
The dome.
We'll just use geometric. I don't think that's actually correct, but flyover data, isometric. It's one of these metric-y things. I'm sorry, it's late. But that grant is in place. I just got the contracts, just signed the contracts on that. Ron is leading that. We won $30,000 and town meeting approved the gap funding to get us all the rest of the way. And that will be not just a flyover, which will be a very detailed flyover. In the spring, by the way, in the early spring, after the leaves fall, after winter, so we don't have snow on the ground, there'll be a flyover. If we can do it in conjunction with other communities for a good price, we will. At this point, it doesn't seem like that will be the best price, but we're still working. And it'll be very detailed data creation. So it's not just the pictures, to kind of geocode it and geoload it and identify sites and the roads and the street lights and the stop signs and the drainage basins. We've talked about painting things so they can be visible from the sky and a more, not pink or something, but in a way that we can identify them more cleanly and lay them out. So that's in progress. The next piece is coordinating with neighboring communities. The biggest single conference, so we always have ongoing conversations. We're part of the South Shore Coalition with MAPC, which means there's a bunch of communities that sit down at least once a month, and we talk about things that we can work together on and ways that we can collaborate. As the part of the South Shore Regional Communications Center, 4 of us sit down monthly as well. So that's led to this Tri-Town Animal Control Officer, which has been very successful. We actually talked about it a little bit at our SHREC meeting, after the SHREC meeting. And we're actually talking now about a regional shelter. I think, remember Jack, we talked to Frank Hager, that project's been on again, off again, on again. It seems to be back on again. So there's a meeting later in the week. We're going to send the animal control officer over to that. That might be another opportunity for regional partnerships. And a big thing that's come up, and I know the sewer board's talked to you a little bit about it, we're having 4 town conversations about sewer. Situate, Cohasset, Hull, and Hingham. Hull is a very big facility that's underutilized, and they're in the process of upgrading. It's a facility that couldn't be built today. with permitting, which has an outshore flow, or a outshore outflow pipe. It may actually be the most cost-effective solution to do some work that all the towns need.
Where is their facility in Hull?
I believe it's up to the north of and it empties out into the ocean.
Is it out by the point, so it's out by Allerton?
Yeah, I believe so. I've not been up to it. They have the capacity, they have a capacity of over 3 million gallons a day. By comparison, ours is 425.
Yeah.
And there are, again, we're a long way from signing the dotted line or anything, but we have a big regional meeting coming up again next week where we have state DEP, the EPA, our state reps, and other and the communities to talk about what's practical, what can we get funding on, because one of the things we have to study is what can we do together? What's the most practical way of doing this? So we want to get some money for that study, but we're bringing people together. There seems to be a genuine interest in ways that we can all save each other money and allow for very targeted, environmentally friendly development.
Does Situate have any sewer
They
at
do,
all?
they do, but not in the north end.
Yeah.
So they have a great need to, next on their list of priorities is North Situate. But they can't really plug that into their facility's already at capacity. So the question is how, if they partner with us, we can sewer some areas that are environmentally sensitive.
Like the Gulf. And
there might be real ways to have every community win in this, and also, Hull, which has this capacity, and might be less expensive for all, because obviously the economics have to work. The state is looking very favorably on regional solutions.
So Situate uses our pipes for North Situate, it goes to Hull.
Yes.
That's basically what you.
I mean, there have to be new pipes put in, because there's nothing there, right? But there's really opportunities here to potentially all of us collaborate and save money, and use a facility that exists. It's already permitted. And that doesn't preclude, by the way, other opportunities for other things.
So would you be looking at regionalizing the governance too of these groups?
That's all potential. By the way, all the sewer commissions are at the table on this. So everyone's, that's a kind of a long-term conversation. But everyone has been willing now to say, hey, we're looking to see what the best for each of our communities is. If we can do it together, that's great. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. But there's we went from, we almost did a 180. There was some real concern about us not having more cooperation, and it's gone the other way, because I think people sat down and said, this is a solution.
Let's be real.
These are the problems that don't end at our borders, and it's not getting any easier to deal with these things.
So out of all these towns, who has independent water? Cohasset, Hingham?
Hingham and Hull are still under a query.
Right, okay.
Hingham's trying to, so Situate has its own water supply, and we have our own water supply. So we haven't talked about water. We've talked a little bit about water.
Yeah.
This is really about solid waste.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to think about, we've talked about combining, and because there's a lot of synergy to do that. I'm just wondering if there's
they came up with the water with the drought, is that there's no technical piping from Cohasset.
We connect,
with hose.
We actually can, our north Cohasset is actually plugged in. Part of our system is really, part of our town is served by the Aquarian, which is Hull, Hingham.
No, I'm just thinking of the south end. So Situate, there's no piping from water from us to them.
Yeah, there is.
We interconnect to
There's a
Situate,
connection
and we
where they
interconnect
can-
to Hingham.
There's a connection where they can.
We sold water to
make a
Situate last
connection.
summer?
The connection
No, we
where
never
they
did.
Oh, we never did? No.
We were ready to. No, we do
Close.
have, we have 2 interconnection locations with Situate. We have an interconnection with
So
Hingham.
where are they?
And they were all set up
Because
to
my
go.
understanding, they're going to use a pipe from
Well,
Church Street to the other end.
the locations are interconnected. There are interconnection locations. It doesn't mean that we're permanently connected.
Oh, that's right, yeah. It would have been piping from.
They're very close, and what they
No,
can do is
but
put
there's
in a
no-
temporary thing.
That's
It's
right,
pretty
but there's
easy.
no direct pipe from Situate.
No,
to
there
our
is to Hingham, because we do sell
Understand
water
that.
To the retirement home.
Linden Ponds, correct. And by the way, it doesn't go directly, just like when you buy cheap power from Quebec, it doesn't go to you directly, you get the credit for it. So, there are a lot of ongoing collaborative conversations. And by the way, another one is, talking about Shrek, trying to see if we can't get some other towns. We actually had a very good conversation with a community that didn't quite bear fruit. We spent a lot of time on it, and it was very effective. But that's led us to a couple of other candidates that might be really prime candidates to join the Shrek. The more there, the more money we get from the state, the more economical it is for all of us. So it's another very successful regional solution we're looking to expand. What is next?
Communications.
Communications, of course. So that's infrastructure and facilities. We've talked about doing a if somebody wants to open one of the windows, I don't know if it's any more nice outside.
Pretty hot in here.
But it's not, our AC turns off by timer at night.
We are gonna have air in the new town hall, right?
Yeah, we're gonna have air in the
I
I have to bring a fan.
I'll go to town meeting and ask for extra money.
The big goal was to develop a communication strategy, and mine is to come up with some kind of comprehensive strategy to talk about communication. So the very first step we identified is, well, we need to have some tools to provide better communication. So the website has been redeveloped, as you've seen. There's a mobile application for the first time. People can look at the town website on their smartphone.
Right.
There's actually even an app now. There's a town Cohasset app you can use. And we have push notification we didn't have before. So you want to sign up and say, hey, tell me every time the Board of Selectmen has a meeting, boom, we're going to email you the agenda and tell you what's going on, or the Conservation Commission, or the Alternative Energy Commission, or all of them. We're using Facebook now as a regular tool. In fact, if we flip to the next page, here's some stats that Jen was able to pull down. We have 689 likes on our Facebook page, which is, we're growing. We haven't done any real advertising and like us on Facebook.
Kevin's got more than that.
Kevin's more likable. Last week, our reach is how many people, they can be postings of, to other people, was 1,847. So that's 1,847 overlap. So that goes beyond the people who like us. The town website has had over 15,000 visits since we went live a couple of months ago. I just think these are a couple of interesting things. People spend about 5 minutes on the website when they come here, which means they're doing something, they're looking, and they do 4.3 actions, which means they're going to different pages, perhaps they're downloading things. So it's becoming a much more vibrant location than it had been before. It's not a static page. As we talked about when we unveiled it, it's a place to get information and to really learn more things. So the next goal here is to plan for integrating these tools. Now we have these great tools. We need to integrate them with our goals. And I think two of the biggest goals here is to get more frequent and direct communication out to our residents wherever possible, and integrate other media, video and voice and pictures, and really make that more vibrant. We're in a multimedia world. Words are great. I like to write, but people see things. If we can shoot some videos and we can get some real pictures. And by the way, I'd like to have let's have residents send in pictures, the picture of the week or the picture of the month, and we can host them. I think we'd love to do those kinds of things, just to make it a little more vibrant. And I think that the current page is much more like that. So what else are we doing? We talked about managing service information requests. So one of the things that you discover as you go digging is we don't really track we don't have any consistent way of tracking the service requests. If they come into my office, that's great. But if they come in somewhere else, highway track's great. I met with Carl. Carl, Brian, and I were meeting yesterday, and they keep books, and they keep these wonderful ledgers, which is great. The problem is the ledgers are, they're ledgers. And how do we push that information to me? How do I?
So, there are solutions out there. I mean,
I know.
We need an ERP system, and Munis has it.
So, met with them when I was in Denver, by the way. We had a good conversation. They're in a bigger, it's Tyler Technology. So I talked to them. They have a couple of different options. So I talked to 3 or 4 different companies that do all of this. We talked about regional solutions. A couple of them companies were very interested in regional solutions, by the way. So we'll be talking about that in the new fiscal year. Cohasset Connects. We've tried. It has not been, one of the reasons I didn't put the data up here, I think we only had about 25 or 26 requests in the whole year. It's out there, but people aren't really using it. I think one thing is we don't have thankfully, there aren't a lot of, we don't have a lot of potholes, we don't have a lot of other issues like that generally. But I don't think we get more vibrant because it's a lot easier to track and do reports on electronic database. We want to do more reports out of Facebook and the website, and we want new reporting tools. E-permitting will have more reporting tools and a lot more information that we can generate. And we're looking at software to manage our FOIA requests. It's a whole different world now. So there's a simple access database where we'll just pop in and do some work. And reporting on dog licenses and town permits. We need to get better at coordinating the information so we can report it. So I can understand better, and you folks can, and the town can. We do a lot every day. I want people to understand what that is. And now that we have a town IT platform, I think we can do a lot more than we ever could before, which is great.
So you and I have talked about this a lot, right? I mean, we're now on Microsoft Exchange, which is a cloud-based system and has all sorts of really great tools. You know, you can integrate that with a customer management system. We could put everybody's name and address and phone number up in a database. And when they come in on the telephone, their name just pops up, and whatever you do with them gets tracked right through the system. And Munis, you know, Munis is an accounting package. That's how it started out, but now it's fully integrated. And you can do really, I mean, everybody's doing this, right? Companies are doing, everybody's doing it. It's cost effective. We need somebody who knows Munis, though.
Well, Microsoft, interestingly, has a product called, it was called Dynamics. I forget what they're calling
Microsoft
it.
Dynamics.
So they're going big in government now too. They're coming out with their own solution. And believe it or not, well, Oracle's done this for a long time for really big companies and cities. And there's a company called Inform. I've never heard of them. Oh, I'm sorry, Inform, just called Inform. There's a number of them out there.
The problem with these other guys is they don't have the accounting for Massachusetts down, so you end up with all sorts of problems
Some
with
of
the
them do.
accounting program.
You're right. That is actually, so I talked to a couple of companies and they're like, well, we're not doing Massachusetts yet. I'm like, okay.
Because we're quirky.
Yeah. So is New York. I mean, we had a lot of issues with New York as we were going through things. The world's changed a lot. I mean, I looked at a lot as in my prior community. We went with as close to an ERP system as there was at the time, and we did a big Microsoft. It was a Motorola tool. I'm sorry, it was a Motorola CSR, customer service request, work orders, constituent relations. But we had a lot more people, so it was for us it was effective. For us, we're small, and several companies were very honest that we were outside their price point and their service point in terms of size. I said, well, there's a lot more of us than there are of Boston, you know, and big cities. They understand that. So some of them, including Microsoft, was looking to, they were entertaining the potential of a regional solution where we might be able to bring people under the same banner and have separate databases, but be able to share a big platform. And again, cloud-based, all kinds of things like that, as long as you have good, stable internet connections. The next year is going to be really interesting. I think there's a lot of new products out there that we're going to be able to take a look at. And we'll make them, hopefully they'll all be price competitive. So.
It'll make it, for us, it'll make a huge difference.
And we're ready. We're now, you know, we really couldn't have done it before. Now that we have a robust telecommunications system and data system, I think we can do those things.
You know, and then some of the benefits are, you know, just like putting the phones in, you don't realize what happened, or the payroll system, right? The payroll system's in. Well, if you do this, you're going to be able to track all service delivery. Like, we do two things. We do governance and we do service delivery, right? We can really start to manage service delivery. You could see what DPW's doing all day long. I mean, you could track orders. Chris could get a list in the morning that says, here are the outstanding service orders that haven't been done yet, right? And you just walk through the list and go to it. Right now, for Chris to get a list like that, I don't even know how you do it. Could you do it? I mean, I don't think so.
Yeah, I go make photocopies.
Yeah.
By messaging.
But, you know, I mean, having that all integrated.
They can scan it. Yeah, no, I agree, Jack. This is, it's the smaller communities, and we are a smaller community, have kind of left out of this because the products were too big and too expensive. But the world's changed. You don't have to load them on your own systems. And, you know, we're never having a robust enough IT staff to manage all these things. We have great staff, but we don't want to have to touch all these products. The world's changing, and Harper's is one example of that. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. The next slide is... Okay, Board of Selectmen. This is part of staff and volunteers. So you completed your mission statement. You know the mission statement. It's on every agenda. The mission
You did that in
statement.
July.
Did that back in September. You did a great job. And that was one of the first things off the checklist. And now I'm going to pivot to Lisa to talk a little bit more about staff and volunteers.
So we've been doing a lot with staff. First, you can see on this chart that you have seen before, this is the org chart from a staff perspective. It's still very horizontal. We spent the year kind of looking at, I know you can't even read it. We spent the year looking at how it's set up and what's working and what isn't working. And so I've made some recommendations to Chris, and I think that he's ready to make some decisions and changes and suggestions on that structure so that it's a little more effective, so that he can fully support all the people that are reporting to him, and that they can support the people up through.
Can we make this one of the items we talk about in goals and objectives? I think the selectmen talking about the org chart and how we deliver services is really important.
And we've talked about this, Jack. And if you look at the functional, I mean, all of those people don't report to me every day, to be clear, right?
No.
So what we've done is, if you see the smaller org chart that's in the town report and the CAFR, it's functional. It's a functional report, and we actually have moved in that direction, and we still have more steps to move in that direction. So we've definitely started to streamline. I think we're now at the point of being able to reassign some middle-level staff to different roles to help support the infrastructure. We just did that with Public Works. We finally made a move we were hoping to do a year ago. So we have Brian, we now have full-time admin supporting him in the entire division, which includes facilities to do a lot of the administrative tasks. There's purchase, and we have the procurement manager working there as well. Now we have an intern working there. So it's really allowed for a lot more of the day-to-day support, because as we continue to go through this, we have a lot of volunteers to support as well. I talked to a lot of my colleagues. The more committees, this last year, I didn't actually, I should have listed all the committees we appointed this year, that you all appointed that we now support. That takes a lot. I mean, it's great. We need to get the staff to back them up because we need that support. So.
And just to go back to this real quick, the volunteer structure. So this past, we're gonna get into that in a second, but this past February we had a training, and what I realized as we set up for that training was that there are over 200 volunteers on boards and committees, and that's without any of the new ones. So that's a huge staffing, structure that needs to be looked at. We definitely need to do some more analysis, and that was recognized throughout this year. That was one of the things. Let's review it and see what we have. And now we see what we have, and it clearly needs some just review and analysis. And is it working? And are we giving them the support that they need to be able to do the jobs that they are charged with?
But, I also think, when we get online with our goals and objectives, I think we should have a really strategic discussion about how we organize ourselves. And go into detail as to why something works or why it doesn't work. We're talking about consolidating the planning function. There's stuff I think we could spend, it's now time for us to start thinking strategically about our org chart. We're ready. We weren't ready a year ago.
Yet we identified it a year ago,
No,
right?
I'm not trying to take away from anybody. We just didn't have the
Yeah,
infrastructure in place to really go.
'Cause these are our goals. It seems like a lot of the work obviously has been the staff, but these are our goals. It's pretty amazing to think of that.
So a big part of that support that we offer our staff and volunteers is training and development. I have spent this year setting up and planning for a full training program for staff. It covers kind of 4 tracks, if you will. One is computer use, so we can actually make sure everybody's up to date on Word and Excel and Outlook and PowerPoint. One of the big areas that we're going to really be focusing on is the use of OneDrive and how we can actually get some more work done electronically. And that goes beyond staff. That goes into our volunteer structures too. We have a few boards that are using OneDrive kind of successfully, but a lot that just don't know that it's there or don't know how to fully get what they can out of it. So that's computer use. Also management, general management. How do you manage a difficult situation? How do you offer the best customer service? That kind of thing. There's also a whole wellness component, healthy staff. That is everything from financial to physical, all kinds of wellness. And then there's illuminations, which are kind of TED Talks and discussion topics that might just be good. That's also a good place where we can talk about changes in Massachusetts law that might affect people. So when the public records law recently changed, this is going to be a chance for us to update that. So this will be set out. There will be 4 trainings every month for staff. It'll also be, we'll open it up to volunteers. Anybody that's on a board or committee can also participate. Then as far as volunteer training, we have to talk, I was working with you guys to follow up on the February training. Once all the appointments get done, July is the next, hopefully the next date for the volunteer training. And I think we should do something similar to what we did in February, but I can work more closely with you on making that happen. And then the volunteer policy handbook, we took a look at it. There was no major changes that we saw were needed, but we may want to continue to review that and make adjustments as necessary, especially if we're making any changes to organization or how things work.
So on technology, now that we have a platform to build off, we've actually started to make some big steps. The biggest one, as Jack pointed out before, is the phone system. We actually have a phone system that's rolled out now almost everywhere. There's a couple of, I think, library is one of the last places going to get it because they actually had a functional system. We can 4-digit dial. It's just amazing. The connections are crystal clear. I can have a conversation with Mary Gilligan down the hall, John Tuffy over in the schools, or someone 1,000 miles away, and the sound is good.
So do we have a town phone directory? Electronic town phone directory?
We actually have for the moment we have set up it's a tree. So there's a tree.
Yeah.
And we do have a directory, and we're now, as the PRI lines, we've gone away from direct dial lines. Though there's still, the numbers are still, there were still numbers there. We're now able to do caller ID and to manage our phone bills. We couldn't get reports. I've asked for reports on phone. I just want to see phone usage reports. So, it's not that I want to catch someone spending all the time on the phone. It's like, are we being efficient? Are we getting billed right? How are we doing things? And we couldn't do that for the longest time. We couldn't get anything. So now the new phone system is going to be able to do reports, and it's going to be able to give us, help us maximize our communications. But the fact that we have caller ID, the fact that we have the ability to get voicemail, the fact that we can do conference calls. I did a conference call from my desk the other day. That we could have done that a few months ago. And it was very effective. I mean, I had Lisa at one place, I had John at another, and me on my, and we had a great conversation. And it was like we were in the room because the sound is that clear. And it's just, at the moment, it's just running off the existing cable in the building, the data cable. It's an IP system. Works great. So,
do you think we're saving? Do you think it's paying for itself?
We're going to be saving money.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I need to do is be able to work with Ron as we flipped over and look at the new bills and say, okay, here's where we're going to be saving going forward. I mean, at this point, just like on your cell phone, long distance is basically free. Not that we're encouraging people to call long distance. There are restrictions on the system.
You also become much more efficient if the important, relevant parties on a project can pick up a phone and get together and have a meeting, and get used to that culture, which a lot of the world is, as you've been saying.
And
this makes us a much more efficient
And Microsoft
organization.
Exchange has a calendar function that everybody in the town can share. You can actually look at everybody's calendar and just go online and book their calendar for a meeting. I mean, this is how the big companies work. This is how my clients do it.
We've been doing it now. We've been using Outlook more robustly, and Tracy's my master gatekeeper, but we've been able to share calendars just in his office for a while, which is
Yeah.
good. But it's taken that next step.
Yep.
Because the whole Exchange OneDrive options to do data, to do collaboration and share information. It's really there, and we can do things now we couldn't before. So one of the key aspects of this too is make sure it's data security. Another community compact we won is for e-security. So that project can be going underway in FY18 to make sure that we're actually safe. So as we go more robustly into this world, we're also protecting ourselves. The new IT network will also allow more digital payments off-site. We don't really do that now. So we're looking at that and looking to finally roll that out. The new HR payroll system, which I'll talk about again a little bit more, but that's a cloud-based solution. We didn't have that. We didn't buy software. We bought a service. And it's not just payroll. We're now doing payroll, doing online. I mean, it was literally, up until a couple of months ago, I was signing paper timesheets. We've now gone electronic. Just in the little bit of time savings I have, it's like that. And we can run reports. Couldn't do any of that.
Took us 9 years.
So Steve and I have been working on the phones and payroll for 9 years.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
It's a big get for the town. I mean, we had to, there were people telling us, we're not gonna do this. And we could never figure out why.
Old
We're there.
habits die hard.
Well, it was more than that.
But it's done.
So we have it, and we're just scratching the surface of Harper's either, by the way. We haven't even touched the HR records, which are all in files. Now, some of those things are secure, we have to make sure they're protected. But we're gonna be able to do things that we couldn't do before. And now we have portals. You can go in and look at your own records in a way you could never do before. Update your contact information. Make sure your deductions are proper. See how much time you have.
Yeah, do the benefits and everything.
You
online.
couldn't do all that.
Apply for your own vacation.
Exactly. In advance. Imagine that, so we can schedule stuff, right? It really is, it's really exciting. And the e-permitting solution, so that is, we have 3 finalist candidates. I don't remember the names of the companies. They're very well vetted by staff. And they're doing further vetting with communities that already use them. What really works? What really doesn't? What could you do differently? We're doing all of that. And the goal is to have something selected and then in place, or being implemented in the fall.
So I used Harper's today to sign on to payroll. It actually allowed me to scan my passport, load it up, all the documents I need. It took me 10 minutes. Did all my documents, did all my signatures, did everything loaded it all up, I'm done. I don't have to talk to anybody, and did my direct deposit. 15 minutes, it was great.
And you did it all yourself?
And the system was fast and really easy to use, and I didn't get lost, and that's a victory, right? Old guy like
Look,
me.
before, we were literally using photocopies of photocopies, right?
Oh, I know.
You can remember, I won't go there, that story.
So, the time, think of the savings of space physically, and the time savings.
Yeah.
And also now we can have, it's a checklist, oh, you didn't scan that document, oh, you're missing this.
And you have perfect records.
Exactly. And it's also accessible to multiple people at the same time if you need to, right? So you could, somebody could be answering time and somebody could be checking.
So these kind of savings we can have with service requests and all the other functions we do in town. It's the same theory, it's just, trust me, I've seen people implement this stuff and totally change the way their companies run. I mean, and it works private, it doesn't matter, it's just wherever you have organizations, it works.
One of the things that, as I look back over just the last couple of years, we couldn't have done this before we had this network either. I mean, we didn't have a network. We had little standalone networks that kind of connected sometimes through the internet. Now we actually have a network. So we have our own intranet, and we're actually one of the things we're working on now is an intranet site.
That was 9 years for, I mean, we gotta take a lap on this one, because, 9 years ago, Steve and I were climbing through the buildings trying to figure out whether we had FiOS or Comcast, and how many FiOS accounts we had, and how many Comcast accounts we had. And folks, nobody had an answer. I mean, when capital budget was banging the drum, and people were telling us to, go to the beach, go swimming, leave it to the professionals, and, I mean, it's really nice to see this happen. Really, congratulations.
But again, laying the groundwork has made the path possible, and we have 2 points of access.
I don't think we
don't have a
I
dozen
think we laid
accounts.
across the
We had a
tracks.
dozen accounts.
Jen and I found over 100 accounts, and we didn't find them all.
So it's the world is beginning, and the reporting capacity will be great. And again, we'll share more of this as we implement more of it. But I appreciate your testimony on Harper's about this, because you entered this effectively and you put that stuff in. It worked out great.
Harper's is up, and it's still in the early stages, so we're still tweaking it and making some changes to it and finding more ways to use it. E-permitting is close, like I said, like Chris said, they are down to some final vendors, which will be great. But the next thing that was on here was storage and retrieval of documents. So that is being kind of queued up to get done too. So there's more of this to come.
So you're gonna use Microsoft Exchange as the platform, or are you gonna go get an outside vendor?
I don't know. So we've looked at a couple of different things, and we're also trying to get some state money for this. So at this point, we asked for a nice big chunk, and they said, "Sorry, not yet." We'll reapply in the new fiscal year. They're lined up a little bit of money for us. We're going to see how we can make the most effective use of it. I don't want to just take money from
SharePoint is what Microsoft has, but it's not. It's very hard to use as a depository for records. Some of my clients have tried it. They spent a lot of money doing it, and it didn't work.
There's a couple of products that have been very well vetted at the municipal field that we might be able to make use of, and we'll look at. And there's one that I used in North Hempstead that was very effective, and the technology's improved even more. Has data OCR, very strong OCR recognition when you scan things, because we have so many paper documents that have to be scanned. And it also integrates really nicely with the database, which is the most important thing. The last thing we need is siloed data. That'd be disastrous. So we want to make sure the stuff's accessible across the platform. So that's in motion as well. Particularly as we talk about town hall, we have to do something anyway. And inventory management. Well, as we talked about, the flyer is going to give us an external infrastructure database, which will vastly improve what we have. There's also IT software. I think we talked about before. Ron has implemented software that tracks every device on the network. We know where they all are. We know whether they're working, who has them, and if something they disconnected, we can follow up and say, what's going on? Where did that go? So they're all logged in. He has a nice database. So everything's coming new.
Include town and schools?
Yeah, it's everything, because we're on one platform now, which is great. So, for example, he shared with me an email. The schools have been, it would be great to hear, I think you've heard some of the schools talk about the digital work that's done. I spoke at Jack Buckley's class, his law class. It's only Tuesday, right? Jesus, it's been a long few
Yeah, I
days.
agree with you.
Yesterday morning, and there were half a dozen kids with their computers popped up because they have digital access. Now, they haven't rolled it out fully there yet, but the kids were there, being able to take notes and all that. It was great. And but the teachers were all like, bring in your, they know every teacher, they know every device they have, bring them back. If you don't bring them back, they're not going to work. So, they're on top of that, and they have a nice, robust interaction with the staff over there, and it's really working nicely. Now we just need to bring the help desk. Ron is now in the process of rolling out a new help desk feature for us on this side, which is great. And then the facilities department software. We talked with Maya, because the better robust data we have, the more happy they are with how we track and monitor things, particularly how we maintain our facilities. So I don't think this has been quite as successful yet as we would like it to be, but the facilities folks are going to have in the field tablets.
I think they have them.
They do now have them?
I think
So
they
I haven't
have
gotten an
them.
update from Mark on this. We've been so busy with other things. And they could get their work orders pushed to them, so they can see what's going on, check them off. Mark can get reports. So much, it's so much easier, particularly when they have so much to do when they have so many buildings. They can be tracked, reported, they know what's going on, they can change on the fly, they can now take pictures, put in information that they couldn't do before. Really, really helpful. And we're looking at upgrading the software they already have, and maybe just using that. We have a product that has multiple features, and Maya was very high on it as to do work orders for that facilities piece. So that was good.
You just, again, you gotta worry about going into silos, right? I mean, we want an
Correct.
integrated system, we don't want a siloed system, because we can't manage that. We don't have the people to do it.
We have to make sure that what we get works robustly and works simply, right? We can't be supporting a lot of products. By the same token, if we have something that really works and we can get support for it, it may be the most cost effective, rather have to train people and pull stuff out. As long as the data is usable.
So who's doing our platform strategy? I mean, it sounds like it's you.
No,
and
it's Ron. It's Ron. Yeah, I mean, Ron. We all talk and meet. So one of the things we talked about with the e-permitting is most important thing is data. I mean, obviously, you have to have data that's not going to be siloed. So the staff doesn't care. They want it to work. From an operations point of view, from a management point of view, the data cannot be siloed. So that's one of the things that Ron has kicked the tires on all this stuff. Does it work? Is it compatible? I hate this. We're going to build a bridge, right? Of course, everyone's going to build a bridge from one software to another. I don't want to hear that. I want it to integrate or be part of another package if it's possible. So it's definitely something we have. It's a foundational concept for that stuff. We'll talk more about this, by the way, and I'd love to have Ron come in later in the summer, early
And
fall.
capital, all the guys on capital budget know how to do this too.
And we've had some good conversations with those folks about this. And they've also done great advice. I've had some great conversations with some folks. So, okay, planning. Re-energize town planning, that was the overall goal. Master Plan Steering Committee was number one. We've appointed, it's been hard work. I know two of the folks sitting at the table here have been active. A lot of good conversation. I think you've got a lot of great progress. I'm sorry I've missed the last couple of meetings. The open space and recreation plan update is underway. That's also moving along nicely. And now we know we have the harbor study. That's going to be an FY18 project. And we just won the Municipal Vulnerability Program grant, which will integrate with both of those. So we'll talk about that as well. That's we just got word on that the other day. So the announcement was just last week, I think.
How much do we get?
$15,000. We got the max grant that will come off.
Fabulous.
The other key to this is the support of town planning. So what are we doing? So I've been working with Clark in particular, but talking with others. How do we scope the planning function? What do we need? What do we need to cover? How are we doing this? We had a meeting with the folks at MAPC to talk about planning and potential solutions, and we're now actively searching for both an in-house function and the consultative services we're going to need to run the other studies, because they all have to integrate. And whoever oversees it internally also has to make sure that those collaborations are happening, because we don't want to have siloed studies either. That would be awful. MVP has to feed into harbor, has to feed into master plan, affordable housing, all of those pieces. I met with the affordable housing folks, and they're popping up, I think, now. Are they the next slide? No, long-range planning is the next slide. Long-range planning, Steve and Jack are on it. Lots of great meetings. There's been a great population assessment, new growth, permitting, fiscal planning. Growth model is more robustly coming up. The fiscal forecasting model is another thing on the agenda ahead. And FY19 budget planning. It's going to be a goal session for that in August, I think, is the next meeting, right? So the facilities, global facilities plan. So we had got that MMPC analysis, which gave us our first rankings of buildings. Town halls in progress. We now need to coordinate as part of the master plan what our facilities needs going to be, based on population, based on where things are going. So it's a perfect time to integrate that conversation and say, okay, what are we doing with the RTF? What are we doing with public works? Schools too. What are the demands as we go forward on those things? So that'll help us go to that next level and have a very directed view. It's not just let's just pay for a study. How does it integrate with the conversation we're having? How does it all fit together? Affordable housing. Just talked about them. So. They were appointed. They've been meeting very robustly. They're going to be coming back for a formal report to you folks on their first year of activity, probably in early September, based on vacation schedule and all that. They've had a great year. They've really done some really exciting work, and I think they're looking to engage and go to and talk about where we need to go. So I don't want to steal their thunder, but they've done some great work. I don't know if any of you have been able to get down to their meetings, but they've done some really good stuff. Unfortunately, they met, last night was a busy night in town. We kicked them back here, so they were here. They usually meet at the senior center. 10-year fiscal model, it's long-range planning group. We've been working on that. That's an ongoing project. And we talked about the financial reporting. I think unless someone has any other updates, what we've been doing, people seem to be comfortable with the monthly reports we give out. And we've created that whole new budget document. Very robust. We want to continue to build it. If anyone has any other thoughts about it, I know Diane and I talked about some of the wording. And if there's anything else you want to see, any more formatting, let us know. We can do some of that work over the summer so we can have a FY19 in January, late January, early February, as opposed to right early in the process so everyone can see it and it won't be out there. And online financial transaction, we talked about that too. There are a lot more e-payment options than we used to have. We need to do e-permitting, and we want to get that in place, and then off-site credit cards. I've talked to Paula. We need to kind of roll that out. Harper's has been the most, at this point, off-site credit cards are important. Getting Harper's and payroll and HR in place was more important than that.
Now, would that be included at the recycling facility and so forth?
Exactly.
And also, excuse me, so we'll have a comprehensive off-site credit card, internet.
Yeah, the goal is to be able to, you go there, you can just swipe a card. It's
Everywhere in town.
Wellesley has that, it's all online, and of course they probably have money to do it, but it's all.
It's not that expensive.
No, it's just
getting
the system in place and saying who's going to do it, because we have to have a service we work with. And we already, REC does a lot of stuff online, not everything, but purposely, some of the stuff they keep manual for a reason so they can drive people to events. But there's a lot of options for online. And we need to get more robust. So what happened during the year that we weren't talking about? Well, the Harbor study. I want to thank again Jack for all the work he did to make that possible, and we won an $80,000 grant. And now we're teed up to start that study and to get the Harbor Committee together and move that forward. The Municipal Vulnerability Program was kind of a poof, popped up, and that was one of the fastest and most collaborative grant processes I've ever had. And it was a nice, comparatively simple 10 questions. We had a team together. Jack Buckley and the folks from CCSCR came in. We're partnering with them. We won the award, $15,000, and it really fits nicely into. And by the way, that's going to pay for folks who are tired of acronyms. It's going to help us as Cohasset assess our environmental vulnerability due to climate change and things. Well, let me rephrase that. The vulnerability for environmental factors going forward.
So I would just like to see us really accelerate the work of the harbor. Once we get the committees put together the next selectmen's meeting, we really need to go.
We have a contract in place, so we're ready to go with that grant.
Okay.
The green community. So, as I think you all have seen, we won that grant for the electric vehicles. They've been very popular. I will be getting you an update as to how many miles we've gone the first 6 months. They've become so popular, people have been fighting over them. Elder Affairs has been a very good use of theirs for transportation and logistics. The schools have one, and we have one that's been used by a lot of our inspectors and assessors. We just won a technical assistance grant for $5,000 to help us with the Green Communities report we have to do for the first time. And that's great. So they're going to be able to give us some support on getting that report in. It's a very required. It's a report with a lot of dots and dotted I's and T's. And go back 1 second. The Big Green Communities application will be released next week, so next Monday.
So you get a grant to write a report to tell you just how well you did
on
with
the
the
grant.
grant money, so that you can give more grants, so that you can write another report to tell you how.
You can raise the tax rates
God
on
bless
citizens.
I wish my teachers
To
would give me
pay
grades
for it.
this way.
That is
Where's the
all
wealth
other-
creation in
yeah.
that transaction?
Yeah, so,
I'll give you a couple ideas.
by the way, that's just to help you the first year. It's like teach a person to swim, teach a person to write a report, we don't come back, you get to do it yourself, so. Hey, look, they're gonna give us free consulting is what it comes down to, I'm okay with that, so,
I'll say this one more
We're
time.
just talking about.
Nothing
There is
I
is
know,
free.
there's no free.
free.
It's not coming out of our budget, I'll put it that way, our town budget, it's coming out of somebody else's.
Not that you see.
Not that I see, okay. And then the community complex, we entered that program, very successful. We've picked up $55,000 in the first round. It's made us eligible for other grant money. I know that we had the lieutenant governor down, it was a great opportunity. I think it's really helped keep us elevated on their radar screen. There is no doubt that is making a difference. I've always said CrossFit punches above its weight class, and we really do, using a boxing analogy, which will probably make people who are less than 30 know what boxing is anymore. I can't use an MMA analogy, I don't know what the mixed martial arts equivalent is. And HR payroll, that's been a really, really big deal, and we've talked about it, but that came on, and I have to give Paula and Lisa and Mary and all the folks, and Jane and all the folks at schools, did a tremendous amount of work vetting, figure out scoping, vetting, and then actually retaining a service that really worked. And I talked to several companies, by the way, when I was at the conference I was at, saying, yeah, we didn't apply for that. You vetted, we couldn't supply all the things you were looking for. So we spec'd it right. So we didn't have to run around talking to people who couldn't provide the service, which was good. And I think it's worked out so far well. So, the pyramid we had last time, you build, you talk, building the foundation. Yay. So what are we looking at? We're going to continue to get feedback and update formal staff and volunteer training. Success, at least continue what the acronym stands for, I forget. That's our internal, let's work smarter, let's give feedback better, let's have a real collaborative workplace. We're going to continue to tweak and upgrade the website and the app. Town hall is obviously a big thing for next year. We want to continue to do more online visibility and functionality, videos, Facebook, all of that. Continue to build and enhance the technology aspects to make us work smarter and more effectively, and of course, always be enthusiastic, and because that's what we're here for. At the end of the day, we're in the service delivery business. We want to do it well, we want to do it pleasantly, we want to do it successfully.
And efficiently.
And efficiently, absolutely.
And the last item is pave Jerusalem Road.
Well, that's coming. That's coming. So it's been a very productive year. There's a lot of projects we've been able to wrap, and a lot of projects we're now opening up for next year. So and again, this is actually really good. So you now have this fresh in your mind as we pivot to next week when we do next year's. So, any questions? I think we had a really successful year. I want to thank everybody,
Great, thank
all the
you.
support,
Thank
all
you
the
and the
ideas,
staff.
all the new projects you threw on the plate over the course of the year. It was very productive, but I think we have a great year ahead. So, thank you.
Lisa, can we still send you some things for next week?
Yes. If you would like, I can send you kind of my summary ahead of time, so you can review it.
And we can see what's missing.
Might help and get the conversation moving a little quicker.
Yep.
So, I'm thinking maybe by Thursday or Friday, if you have anything else left to send me, I'll throw it in there, with my initial kind of categorization and.
Great.
And we'll go from
So we
there.
can be efficient next week, and we've come so far just in terms of being able to lay this out this way with action items, and so thank you for
The
that.
license agreement, we need to get that signed.
I think I passed it through.
Can I just bring one other thing up?
Yep.
I know that this is the time of year that we also have to work on Chris's evaluation. I don't know if you have assigned some people to lead that charge, but I'm here to help, whatever that is, so. wanna remind-
So what we've done in the past is we just have that format that we each fill out, and then we collect them and then come up with a master document, and then the individual assessments. I mean, does anybody have any, and you, Lisa, does anybody have any thoughts or input on that actual document? I think it's worked.
Can we all get a copy and take a look, like, and get it back to you for the meeting next week? Can we take like 5-10 minutes to talk about it at the retreat?
Could do that.
Just
Just
generally, the
general, what are we gonna do,
process.
how are we gonna do it?
So I'll send you a copy of the blank form that we've been using. Yeah.
This has
That's the
to be
license you
done-
approved last meeting for the coastal, the access, the financial grid for the poles.
And just as an aside, you were gonna check with respect to the easement as to whether or not it was permanent or not?
Yes, so.
No, you don't have to address it now, but let's just, I just
Yep.
want to remind.
That's just, that license is not permanent.
That's it, huh?
No, I know the license isn't, but we'll be asking for an easement. The question is whether an easement will be permanent.
Okay. Next up,
Your updates.
selectmen update. Who'd like to go first?
I'm fine.
Just to let everybody know that this weekend is the Arts Festival, which I think is obvious, because the tents are going up. And then the following weekend, I think the Sunday is the triathlon, so the next couple of weeks are definitely busy in town, and just be aware.
Okay.
Am I gonna be the first selectman to ever finish the Cohasset Try?
All right.
Hey,
I don't know yet, I don't know. I'm going, but I don't know how to make it.
I'm on kayak patrol, and I'm gonna
Okay.
have a cowbell when
It's
you
not swimming,
swim
it's gonna
by.
kill me.
Yeah.
That's very killed most people.
And then move the killer whale's gonna get me turning in a second tomorrow. See that big tasty morsel.
Steve?
I'm good.
Congratulations to the graduates. Now, almost 2 weeks ago, it seems. Congratulations to the towns, or the school district's athletic teams who have had another season of, just great success after great success, which is, to Chris's point, punching above your weight class. Other than that, I have nothing because I'm melting over here.
Good, I'm glad you are. I'm not the
I'm
only
in
one.
high and a long sleeve shirt, so.
Trust me, we were better off with the windows closed and whatever air was moving.
So a couple of things, the baseball team, I'll have to plug them. They had a very good year, as did the women's lacrosse and the tennis, and I mean, you're right, every single team.
Yeah, women's lacrosse rocked it this weekend.
Yeah.
They're still, they're
They're
still
still alive.
they're in
Still in
state
it.
tournaments.
Still in.
Last team still in it.
I do have an item, I'm sorry, I forgot to bring this up. I think you all received emails with respect to
Yeah, that's
requests for consideration, et cetera, by a regular interested party, citizen, is on railings for Cunningham Bridge and so on. And I want to make certain, and I direct this to you, Chris, and Brian in his absence, that the town does bring forward some, what I think are very well thought out suggestions with respect to the railing design, which will make or break how that structure appears. The extension, to the degree to which those railings are extended beyond the bridge surface. And in this case, Ralph Dormitzer is the citizen asking the question. But he also asked a very good question with respect to bridge height. And its height above mean low water, I believe, is maximum 9.2 feet, but it's in a VE 14 flood zone. So 100-year storm would bring water at a fairly significant force 5 feet above the bridge surface. Has anyone considered that? So,
They actually, yeah, they did initially do that. They looked at it, they went back to the 38 storm, they went back to the 1890-something storm. 98, that was the Portland storm. They went back to the blizzard of 78, they went back to the no-name storm, and all of them were under the bridge. So that's, from what they predicted, that was 150-year storms that they had. So the FEMA maps are one thing, but certainly by historical purposes, the last one that was big enough to punch through was late 1880s when it actually broke the dam there. So probably was the Portland storm, but that was a dam at the time.
yeah, no, I'm asking
So
the question
they did,
because it's
yeah.
I think it's a viable question.
Yep. So the other thing, which at the end of the meeting, Chris and I looked at, and in front of you is a draft letter, which I think is one that the approach options for the railing and the ingress and egress of the bridge, basically, the railing.
Okay. So this is for this is to start the conversation, so.
So it's designed to really not demand it, but to say, look, we think there may be other options out there. Now, I'm not certain whether these options are viable or not. The initial round, they said it may not be Massachusetts Commonwealth approved, but it may be. So they're gonna look into that.
Excuse me, can I just
Yeah.
interrupt for a sec?
Hmm?
I just think we should probably note that this is a topic not reasonably
Oh, I'm sorry,
anticipated since it's
Senator
not.
Topic is not reasonably anticipated, but Sharon, 48 hours in advance, sorry about that. And it happened last night after the meeting, so it was 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock last night, 9 o'clock. It was discussion on the rail and the ingress, egress into the bridge on the right-hand side with the railing. These are two options that were brought about during the meeting, and I thought it'd be reasonable to at least let the DOT vet it, look at it, consider it, see what the cost is it available, is it legal in Massachusetts, and does it fit the requirements for the bridge, and is there a cost associated with it that would be, above and beyond the cost of the contract that's there. So this was our quick once over to talk to the DOT for consideration.
This has or has not been delivered?
No. This is just
for your.
This was just prepared for conversation for today. And you can, by the way, take it and you can come back to me next week and.
Let's do it.
Okay, so.
I'd
Send it
rather
out
do it
now.
sooner
Yeah,
rather
let's
than
send it
later.
right out.
I wouldn't send on it.
All right, if anyone wants to make any comments or thoughts, and whether it can come out from my office or come out from you guys, it doesn't matter.
My comment would be that I do believe that if the Board of Selectmen is willing to adopt it, that it should be under the board's approach.
My station there was easier to access.
No. I take nothing away from you. I just,
Yeah, if you're willing to, I'm certainly willing to put it out.
Want to vote on it?
Yeah.
I am
And
as
do
well.
it from that point of view. I mean,
Let's vote
I've
on
had
it.
very good interaction with the DOT, and I was a number, I call them regularly about the bridge project, so certainly.
Okay, well, move that we vote to send this letter to Director Perry at Mass DOT under the signature of the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed?
If there's any other tweaks, grammatical, whatever, just get them to us tomorrow,
Yeah.
we'll send that out. And if you want to sign it on behalf of the board tomorrow, Paul, that would be, you can add some.
Maybe a copy of it if you want.
Yeah, we'll definitely, we'll
We'll
make sure
send it up
you
to
get a copy,
you.
don't worry. We'll get
Okay,
you.
as long as there's no typos.
Yeah, you can have this. This is just a draft, by the way, so.
Yeah, no, that's
you know.
okay, just
But
move
it
to a sidebar.
kind of gives the general,
It's the two main points that
the
we
general view of the board.
discussed last night, that they,
It seems to me too
And,
that.
I'm hoping it's an option. It may not be, some of it has to do with how narrow the rails are, where, they said that.
The approach rails are the wood and the bridge rails are the,
Right.
those are the two most, those are the two things that I think are the most visible, and there are options, those are real options.
Right.
I do wish that, the fact that we have to go dig them out was a little bit of a, and I appreciate, by the way, I really do appreciate that Ralph took the time on the first one in particular. Brian actually took those pictures of the second one. Brian went out in Norwell and actually talked to the folks in Norwell. And that is a product now. It's a wood face, steel back.
Very attractive.
Yeah, and it's something we should look. I think when someone's going to price that, look at it. Costs more than the steel,
Yeah.
but it's something we can obviously talk about price-wise and incorporating as we can into the town. Because we don't have any roads. Another topic for the future on this is speeds. Right, we can reduce speeds in town now without traffic studies. So it's something I think we'll talk about for if that's a goal, we can talk about those things next week. But that also allows, that's not high speed. You couldn't put that on 93. Well, you probably could put it on 93 because the speed's about 15 miles an hour most of the time. But you could put those on town roads because our speed limits, you could put it on 3, but you could put it on our town roads because it meets the, as I understand it, the safety ratings for 30 or 35 miles an hour, or whatever, which is the vast majority of our roads are that was. So it's definitely worth pursuing. And the other, I very much appreciate Ralph having dug that out. I mean, it's concrete. They should give it a real serious vet.
And, you know, I mean, credit to Ralph again for doing it, because it doesn't look so very different than the one they're proposing, but it looks different enough that it really is significantly aesthetically better.
It meets the same requirements. You can't have your kid's head can't poke through, get
Right.
stuck.
Reach your arm.
Right.
You can't. You don't want to just fall off.
Right, can't be something would
so-
run into. It just has a whole different look,
Right.
but yet looks very similar to it.
That's one we do it one time in 75 years, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully, the town manager in 175 years from now will be worrying about that.
And the other,
The next look.
the one other aesthetic
Virtual
thing that,
fencing, they'll have that.
one other aesthetic thing that came up, and I think I understand that they are gonna, the facade of the support structure is gonna be the granite.
Yeah.
Even though one of the things looked like those, almost like those blocks.
Yeah,
those
they are
blocks.
going to be
Pavers.
they're going to be granite, but they also have to be attached, right? So
Right.
Then the approach walls will be the restored or the reused stone
Got
that
it.
exists.
Yep, okay.
And so the recreation is now on the website, by the way. That I believe went up today. The DOT PowerPoint. So, is there anything else that you want to?
No, that's it.
I have just two things. But I want to thank everybody who came out last night. And
Yes.
all of you were able to come. It was a good meeting. The DOT has been they've kept they've been receptive. They're talking. As I pointed out last night, they've already had more meetings with us than they normally have with anyone. And we've talked about
Punch above our
establishing.
weight class.
Yeah, we communications protocols. They're very, very eager to work with us to make sure our communication's flowing, to work with the residents. I do really appreciate that. We'll continue to build on that. So thank you. So we are ready to do some wiring of the senior center to make it live for cable. In order to do that, we're going to have to relocate some of the facilities. This facility will no longer be live broadcast capable because we're going to have to do some creative reuse of the connections. This just the way it's set up. So we talked about making a move over there on a regular basis. We won't pull the trigger yet. So the question is, and I'm not asking for a decision, they'll have to take this out of service to make that in full service. So we can keep this here and wait for a while, or we can relocate.
As we melt, he's
Right.
asking us this question.
Has nicer air conditioning and heat. It's a bigger room,
stay
it's
here.
nicer.
Would you pass me an oxygen
mask before I vote on this?
No vote, but I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not gonna authorize to do any work, they're gonna run cable, but I'm not gonna have to do any other work. And it's not even the cameras, it's really the components here. There's some components that, I have to talk to Don again, but there's some components I need to relocate from here to there to make the connections work.
So, let me get this straight. Because there's equipment here that would be needed there to do a live broadcast. And
It's the connection equipment, some of what Tracy has right there.
look, I agree, it's a very nice building, it's a gem and a great place to go. There's something amiss when we're the officials elected by the entire town to administer the town, and we abandon ship on town hall. So that's just, it's just.
Well, that's why I'm bringing it up, because we
No,
won't do it unless you folks want to move over there. We won't do it until we're ready.
I'm not suggesting that we don't use the building occasionally or even on a more regular basis, but it's a bit like saying, well, hey, I'm gonna skip out of home because my neighbor's house serves better dinner.
No, they have
think my
files
son
instead of
actually
Comcast. So what does it cost to get this piece of equipment?
That's
Can we
really
just
the
buy it?
If that's your ask, I will ask Don and say,
Yeah, let's
hey,
find out.
what's the thing that you have? I mean, they don't have to move these cameras. We want to reuse equipment, right, as much as possible. These cameras are fully adequate. But they also have portable cameras, so the camera situation is we don't have to worry about that in that building. It's that equipment. Let me ask.
Let's find out.
Let me ask.
Thank you.
I mean, I think the other thing is that it's the first step towards the new town hall, is that we're.
Well, at some
but I
point,
wouldn't
this
say we're
building's got to
abandoning
be,
it,
whether it
but
be
we're getting ready
renovated
for
or
a move.
whatever.
Right.
We're gonna have to move it eventually.
That's fine, but
Right.
right now, I simply make the point that a shovel in the ground on town hall is still some time away.
I will tell you that we have started to move some committees there because it's nicer. Conservationists fled this building, they like it.
So,
No, no,
I mean,
no,
it makes
no,
sense,
no
I mean, if the piece
disagreement.
of equipment costs $500,
I'll find out.
I'm making up the
If it's
numbers.
$500, it's a piece of cake.
Right.
Yeah.
If it's $15,000, I'll have
That's
to
a different
figure out what to
story.
do. So
Yeah,
we'll find out.
but let's do the
I
investigation,
will.
because
Yep.
ultimately, I would think that having more than one live broadcast location is going to be
Beneficial.
desired in
Well, the
this
schools
town
are still
anyway,
gonna be there. The school facility will also be live.
than having
broadcasting.
more than two. Okay? There's another sensitivity too. One of the things that you might recall that the donors and original owners of the senior center were very concerned about was that it was just a surreptitious way of taking it over. Okay? And that's,
That's not
we made great assurances that that wasn't the case.
But we've been doing night meetings there with other committees. Just
No, meetings, yes, I get it, but I think that's a symbolic gesture that you might want to think about.
No, I agree.
I'm just saying, it's a much more functional space.
I
anyway.
agree.
So, but I'm
I
just,
agree.
again, it's not my call. As I
Keep
reminded Don, I said. we're
Keep
not
the
doing
board
anything.
sweating here, and we'll move town hall along that much quicker.
It was
All right.
beautifully timed, the ask, I have to hint to
So,
you.
all right, so that's, if there's no other questions, that's all I have for tonight.
Anything else from the board?
Nothing from me.
Good.
All right. And that's for a motion to adjourn the meeting
So
on
moved.
July 13th?
Second.
June 13th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 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 aye.
Very good.